Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast where we chart the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
It's me, John. It's me on the other end of the Zoom.
That's
Hi.
good.
Hello, listeners. You're joining us on an interesting week with an interesting one-off in the Hammer, canon.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, we're talking about Curse of the Werewolf, which is the only werewolf movie that Hammer made.
It's true. Even if this one wasn't a success, it seems weird that werewolves as a concept, they're like, no, we tried. We're done. Moving on.
People don't want that. Never mind.
This character didn't need to come back. We didn't need to. Just like I never thought that you had to necessarily always have Larry Talbot, at Universal. Werewolves are not one guy. It's a thing. There can be, just like we saw in Brides of Dracula, there are other vampires in Transylvania. There could be other werewolves wandering the world. So it's a shame this movie didn't work for Hammer, but at the same time,
I think I was saying this last week. I would love to have seen Van Helsing go up against a werewolf at some point.
Yeah, and you could have. And if you needed to tie it in, if you needed to say, well, the curse continued through a bite or a thing or what, you certainly can. But it's not necessary. There could just be other werewolves in this world.
Because I will say the werewolf mythology in this movie is something we are going to be talking about because going to talk about an interesting choice.
That said, I'd say werewolf mythology has a lot of leeway.
Yep.
I mean, so does vampire mythology. It all comes from folklore.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff that whenever you do a vampire film or book or whatever, or a werewolf thing, you pick and choose what you want.
Absolutely. Because
very few vampire movies do the whole thing about, well, if you take the vampire's blood and bake it in a loaf of bread. I mean, they don't do the thing about, some of them are OCD. So if you scatter rice as you run away from it, it is forced to stop and pick up every grain of rice. And then it gets caught in the rising sun and it burns.
Actually, my favorite piece of vampire lore.
Which they used in the X-Files of all.
Yes,
I was like,
they did.
That's great. Yeah. That they went with the OCD vampire thing because that. So yeah, you can pick and choose. And this movie picked and chose, but it did based on source material, which I get into a little bit on my history thing. So it is an interesting take and one that I could have gone deeper into what it was trying to imply and didn't. It both is pretty daring and risque with what it's suggesting, and then also a little timid about actually exploring it explicitly and having people talk about it. So it's sort of like, let's dip our toe in and then run away.
Yes, I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
Well, let's, Brendan, you prepared some background material on this movie. Let's hear a little bit about the history of Curse of the Werewolf.
I did, John, as always, and my listeners, I'm being very possessive. My listeners expect this kind of homework.
Well, there are people who listen for you, and there are people who listen for me.
John, you swing in a hammock pretty much all week long, sipping drinks out of a big coconut shell with little umbrellas in it, and then you idly watch the movie, and then you just roll over and do this podcast. Meanwhile, I'm in a library.
Yes.
I'm literally having to pat the sweat from my forehead as I slavishly.
People can't see us, but what is great about that is behind you are a bunch of books. It does look like you're in a library, kind of.
Yeah, though, of course, the books I'm using for reference are all ebooks. Sorry, folks, I do love the physical book, but if I don't have it, I'm just going to buy myself a PDF. Thank you very much.
I have space issues is why I mostly have digital stuff now.
Well, you're afraid of the vacuum of space because you hate the fact that people cannot hear you scream.
Because I love to have people hear me scream. So
and you're also afraid of black holes. I know, John. You have a lot of problems with space.
I do. I can't deal with it, man. It makes no sense to me.
Well, here's some stuff you and our listeners may not know about the making of this film. Ooh, I'm getting good at segues.
All right.
In 1960, Hammer Films was in pre-production of a film called The Rape of Sabina, a historical drama set during the Spanish Inquisition.
That sounds like a real winner.
Yeah, if you haven't heard of it, that's okay, because they never made it. Because apparently, once the Catholic Church caught wind of this flick, they let the British Board of Film Censorship know that such a film would be banned outright. They would censor that movie. So Hammer's like, yeah, that's done.
Yeah, I also just think in terms of business decisions, putting rape in the title of a movie, not the most appealing to an audience.
Well, they were actually thinking conceptually outside the box. They were retelling the Trojan War story of the rape of the Sabine women,
right?
But they were moving it up to the Spanish Inquisition. They were using it as almost like a myth form. But even so, yeah, it sounds like, what were they thinking? So anyway, Hammer shut the film down, but now had all these beautiful sets he had already constructed. So what to do with these beautiful sets? Well, producer Anthony Hines had an idea. Adapt one of his personal favorite cult novels, Guy Endor's The Werewolf of Paris, and set it in 18th century Spain. Bingo bongo, solution appears. That's how we got this movie.
I mean, is there a better reason to make a movie than we've already built sets?
I do love the practicality of Hammer just going, well, we got to use them.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. We'll set another movie, and not exactly in the same time period, but they went back even further, or not further, but 17th century Spain.
Right.
Sorry, 18th century Spain. So the novel Werewolf of Paris was published in 1933. It was originally told against the backdrop of the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 and was full of historical, political, and psychosexual detail, which was very daring for its day. But Hines, with budget and thrift in mind, just stuck to the bare bones of the plot of The Werewolf of Paris. Now, an interesting side note to me, possibly to you guys, the listeners, Guy Endor was a screenwriter for Universal during the 30s, yet never worked on any of their horror films, much less was his novel, which wasn't totally unknown. It was fairly successful. But Universal did not use his novel for the basis for either of that studio's werewolf films. So it seems really strange. He's like going, I couldn't help but notice you were working on a werewolf movie. I don't know if you happen to know that I did write a novel, Werewolf of Paris, fairly successfully. Would you like to use it? So Universal's like, we got a better idea. Call in Larry Talbot. But so it took, until 1960 that someone actually decided to use that. So Hines wrote the screenplay for Curse of the Werewolf himself, actually, under the pseudonym of John Elder. And workhorse director Terence Fisher, our old pal, stepped in behind the camera. This time around, though, no Peter Cushing, no Christopher Lee. They would not be, donning the period garb and joining in the fun. Instead, this time, they took a chance on an ambitious young actor who had only filled bit parts in a few of their pictures, Oliver Reed. Said Fisher of the cast.
They found him down the street at the local pub, and
probably did. Now, he was like in his early 20s here, but I would not be surprised. I mean, the drinking has to have started at a young age. Yeah. It didn't just fully form.
You don't rise to that level of booze hound in your later years.
Fisher said about the casting, "We wanted an actor who could look really ferocious, scowl like thunder, and snarl terrifyingly." Said Reed himself, "They knew I looked the part already, so I got it, and I learned a lot." That's my Oliver Reed.
That's all right. Is there? I will say this though, legitimately, and not just to joke about either one's alcoholism. Is there something about these substance abusers playing these werewolf roles that kind of works?
Well, I just have to say that it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a drunkard to play a werewolf is the full quote that never gets put out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a requirement, but it does seem to have helped in both cases.
Yeah. They know how to play sweaty, desperate,
I think there's
fearful.
Something about, there's kind of, it's similar to Jekyll and Hyde. There's something inside me I want to keep bottled down, and if it gets loose, then people will be hurt. And I think that's something that a drug abuser or alcoholic can kind of relate to. They're like going, when the dark side of me gets out, I wake up not knowing what I've done, and I've probably hurt people. Boom, werewolf.
Right.
So the resultant film, which was actually, pardon me, I just burped. The resultant film was actually cut by 5 minutes before release by nervous censors. So I don't even know what we're missing. But it divided horror films and critics alike, many of whom were thrown by the pacing of the story and how little screen time the monster itself was given. But at least this time, this was an intentional choice. Terrence Fisher, again, who was very proud of this movie, regardless of its box office returns, stated, "Please don't call this a horror film. Call it an adult fairy tale with emotional, tragic, and if you like, moral overtones." Which I think that's what he was going for.
I agree. That's what he's going for.
And just like you had said earlier, John, it joined such properties as Jekyll and Hyde and Phantom of the Opera as one of Hammer's iconic horror entities that enjoyed no sequel. Didn't get another off. Even The Mummy came back, but we'll talk about that later. Now then, in a shocking twist, I conclude not with Cushing or Lee, since they're not in this movie,
right?
But with factoids from the life of Oliver Reed.
I believe this is the only time we'll get to talk about him.
Yeah, sadly. But I mean, his career really did.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much take off immediately. This was his first lead. And after that, he was getting other stuff left and right and was not with Hammer again. Though he paid his dues in small and credited roles in the early part of his career, Reed was actually the nephew of the great Sir Carol Reed, one of Britain's finest directors, responsible for Odd Man Out, The Fallen Idol, Oliver, which actually did in fact star his nephew.
Yeah.
And personal fave, The Third Man.
One of my favorites.
Holy mackerel. God damn that movie. I'm sorry to cuss this early in the podcast.
Love that
By
movie.
the end of it, I'll be swearing like a sailor, but here at the top.
One of the great Orson Welles performances. One of the great villains in film history.
Yeah.
Harry Lime.
The great Harry Lime. Oh
great
my God.
Movie bad guy.
You ever listen to the radio show, The Adventures of Harry Lime?
Yeah. I have heard some of it.
It's fun.
It's super fun.
So that was a good factoid. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense that he was related. Reed, another factoid that you probably know, John, was one of many considered by Bond producers, the Broccolis, as a possible replacement for Sean Connery when he left the series. But I mean, that is a pretty big list. But he was,
but he was on that list. Yeah. Oh no, they thought
including young Timothy Dalton. Like at that point, they were like, yeah, maybe Timothy Dalton.
Too young was what they deemed.
Yeah, give him a few years.
Yeah, and they did, and he was great.
He was not served well by the movies he was in, but he could have been our best Bond ever.
Dalton,
he could have.
Yeah, no, I think Dalton's amazing in the part, and I wish he had done more.
All right. So Oliver Reed met his second wife Josephine in 1980 when he was 42 and she was 16. He had the great restraint to wait to marry her until 1985 when she was 21. I mean, holy hell.
He said someday.
Oh, I will say they did remain married to his death. So, I mean, I guess she was the one, but that's just creepy. 42 and 16.
Yeah. And to just be like, she's the one for me.
Yeah, she's going to make sure all the bottles are put away.
She's really good at sweeping up bottles, getting wine stains out of the carpet.
We stated before, and we'll be stating probably for the rest of this talk, he was a legendary drunk. I mean, the man was best friends. Yeah, he was best friends with Keith Moon, for God's sake.
Whoa, Keith Moon had a substance abuse problem?
Yeah, sorry to be the one to let you know.
Oh, no.
He was a drinking buddy of Steve McQueen's. In fact, he threw up on him once.
That guy also got up to some stuff.
Now, according to one widely disseminated anecdote, Reed and 36 friends in one night put away 60 gallons of beer, 32 bottles of scotch, 17 bottles of gin, 4 crates of wine, and a bottle of Baby Sham, which I wasn't even sure what that was. I had to look that up. Okay, that's 37 men. That's a big group, but still, that's
a gargantuan amount of alcohol.
That's a
like.
Did
half of them die?
Aircraft carrier hold full of goddamn alcohol.
That's more than most people will consume in a lifetime.
That's more than a football team probably would consume. But anyway, that's probably overstating.
Yeah.
But
those football teams can drink, man.
There are too many great drunken Reed stories, but I'll close with this one. A frequent and entertaining talk show guest, Reed left the set of the Channel 4 television discussion program After Dark after arriving drunk and attempting to kiss feminist writer Kate Millett, uttering the phrase on air, "Give us a kiss, big tits." Ladies and gentlemen, the star of tonight's production, Mr. Oliver Reed. Woo!
I had not heard that one. That is, oh my God, what a piece of television.
He did claim, and I don't know, but he did claim later in life, he goes, look, yes, of course I had a drinking problem, but it became such a thing where it was expected. Like when he was being put on a talk show, they actually encouraged him to drink.
It was part of his character.
It was expected.
Yeah.
And supposedly some TV show that he was going to be on had pranked him on purpose. They put a hidden camera in his dressing room and some bottles of scotch and filmed him hitting the stuff in his dressing room before he came out. And they used it to shame him and get a laugh from the audience. And then later on, he's like going, I was in on it. And those bottles were full of water. I knew the camera was there. They encouraged me to play up the drunk thing, and I did. And I'm like, well, okay. He does admit he had a problem, so that does give some weight to him saying not all of it was absolutely, I did play some of it up. I'm like, maybe. Still, we'll be talking a lot about his substance abuse problems as we talk about today's film, which I'm very interested to hear your take on, and we'll get to that. But I know what you want to do first.
Oh yes, I want to talk about the poster for this movie because this poster kind of rules.
It's pretty good. I'd say, except for the painting of the woman isn't very good.
No, I agree. That is the weakest part of it. But that werewolf looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So we have creepy font telling us the curse of the werewolf. And then, yes.
It's a watercolor sort of, night sky. It's all very blue, full moon, skeletal trees. In the foreground, we have, of course, there's always a thing where, let's do a group of people. They're going to be small. The monster has to loom.
Yeah.
So you have giant werewolf with giant woman in his hands. And it's a really nice painting of that makeup, which it's a pretty great makeup too.
It is. And that, we'll talk about this. Why the movie felt the need to hide said makeup for so much of it baffled me, because it did look so good once it's finally revealed deep into the picture.
Yeah.
Deep into the picture.
I think I already know what your main problems with this movie are, but that's okay.
Yeah, so he's carrying the presumably...
doesn't look anything like the actress.
Yeah, was it Catherine Feller? No, doesn't. Yeah, but at least it's not a incredibly modern looking woman.
That's true. If you skip ahead, we're on the IMDb page. If you skip ahead to the half sheet, the British half sheet.
Okay, I think I've got it here.
Where it goes half man, half wolf.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
It gives us the little comic panel, though this time it's a painted one. It has a little inset panel of the werewolf like strangling a guy.
Right.
So I love that. It's a return to the little panel. So you got big werewolf and screaming woman and another screaming woman. The little panel of werewolf strangling a guy. That's a good one too.
Just to go like, don't worry,
don't worry. He's going to kill some people.
I will say, though, it is the worst painting of the werewolf makeup in that inset panel.
Yeah, it is. It basically took the one that was in large form and then kind of tried to reproduce it in tiny form. It doesn't quite work.
Not as good. It's interesting. On the American poster we were initially looking at, no tagline. But there are plenty of taglines to talk about.
Yes, there are. But they did not, on the American poster, put any text other than the title.
So right off the bat, we got to open with the tagline. That's the easy, boring one. This summer's new big thrill. Okay.
Yeah.
Even those who loved him were not safe.
That's true.
Actually, I don't know if that's true.
Oh no, I mean, he kills his best friend. Spoiler.
He kills his best friend. But isn't love also what cures the werewolf curse?
That's true. true love is something that can soothe the beast inside.
There's some
But it
stuff.
looked for a while that he was going to possibly kill his adoptive father.
Yeah. All right. Then we have, of course, half man, half wolf, which we mentioned.
Yes.
He had but one body, yet lived with two souls.
Yeah, they kind of mention that too a little bit in the
Yeah,
movie.
there's some. The priest character has some talks about that kind of stuff.
He has some jibba jabba. He has some werewolf mythology jibba jabba.
Oh, there's a lot of werewolf mythology jibber jabber in this movie. Then we have half man, half wolf, compelled by the hideous curse of his evil birth to destroy even those who loved him.
Yeah, kind of combining some of these themes there.
And then my favorite, of course, is he fought the hideous curse of his evil birth, but his ravished victims were proof that the cravings of his blood beast demanded he kill.
That's like a whole freaking paragraph. That one.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with here's my thesis statement, and then I'm going to expound on it. I'm expounding.
Probably wouldn't have done as well if it was he expounds. I can't wait to see this wolf expound in this movie. Yeah. So there you go. They really. I'll say this though, just up front.
Okay, I'm ready.
This promotion promises a movie that
We
does
don't
not deliver on any of this. This is, I mean, yeah, it's a werewolf movie, but not for a long time.
Yeah, the movie itself is almost like Smallville or Gotham, in the fact that it's an origin story that ends just when he's basically, I mean, technically he is being a werewolf even as a kid, but we have
see it.
The majority of this film is all leading up to when he finally, as a man, is breaking out as a werewolf in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie.
His werewolf career was just getting started.
He could have really gone places.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting. I mean, I thought also it's like I get what you were going for.
Yeah.
Film.
Yeah.
I question the choice to. It's so much setup. So much of the movie.
I did time this 47 minutes to Oliver Reed in a 93-minute movie.
You got to think that the thing that is interesting about a werewolf on film is that dichotomy of generally an innocent person who has this terrible curse, and the struggle, the turmoil, what their life is like, and yes, how it affects those around them. But to shove all of that into like the last third of the movie essentially is a weird choice. Not saying I didn't care about the scenes of him as a kid or the wonderful people around him.
Well, and the other
in
thing,
fact,
though,
I liked all the characters. It's just I kept going, you've put the weight on the wrong
him as a kid, though, 25 minutes into the movie before we even get to him as a kid.
Yeah, because we first have to see his conception.
Yeah.
And that takes quite a while. We set up the society he's in. We set up some of the themes about the high and the low, which is very much like the Universal movies. Mm-hmm. Let's do a class thing here. And some of the Hammer films, too.
They've been dealing with that, certainly the Frankenstein movies, exactly. But, yeah, I the fact that this is based on a novel shows, because I think a novel could pull off this kind of pacing. But for the first half of this movie, I was pretty bored. Actually, really bored. Because they're just there's really not much going on. I kept watching it, and I kept going, I thought I saw this movie once, but maybe I didn't, because I'm going, I don't know what the hell's going on. Where's Oliver Reed? What does this have to do with a werewolf, even, for a good chunk of it?
Well, I had known that the thing that stood out about this film, and I remember it from when I was a kid. Of course, I remember a lot of the stuff I'm remembering is the last part of the movie.
Yeah, same here.
But the thing that stood out was the pains they went to go through to present this idea of people are saying eugenics in books. I'm like, I don't know if it's about eugenics. It's about a spiritual malaise or evil that is basically inseminated in a woman that affects a child that grows up, and that's why he becomes a werewolf. It's not about being bitten by a werewolf or that kind of thing. It's not gypsy mythology, and I'm
Right.
sorry for using that word, sorry, but I mean that whole concept, which Universal, of course, that's what they leaned on. This is all about, no, it's about a certain spiritual evil that can basically be transferred through this from blood to blood. From an evil act will an evil thing come. And
Which is not an uninteresting concept. It's just
no, but it's
they
way too
could've-
drawn out.
Yeah, they could have presented it in a more engrossing and a fast-paced manner or something. Because I do think, once we get to Oliver Reed, I think the movie's fine. Like, I think the second half of the movie is pretty good.
Yeah, they actually, I don't. I mean, because Oliver Reed is great, and he's Oliver Reed.
Yeah.
And he does a fine job with this. That's why I just feel that we were cheated. Not necessarily that we're cheated from werewolfing out, well, werewolfery, if you will. Thank you, Werewolf of London.
Yeah.
We're cheated at that, but I think we're more cheated, just like Leon as an adult. We get so little time with him. Oliver Reed is I know he's nothing at this point, but he is our money. Why are we spending so little time with him? This should be about his life. We could have seen more of that relationship with him and the vineyard owner's daughter,
Christina, because once again, it feels like this movie should have started 47 minutes into it. Like, and then we could backtrack. A lot of this backstory could have been revealed as it's being revealed to Leon. Which I always want to call him Leon the Professional, but Jean Reno is a werewolf now. I want to see.
25 years ago.
Oh yeah, I don't mean current day Jean Reno. He's fine playing villains in current Spike Lee movies. That's the thing where you're just like. You can't take 47 minutes to get to the main character, or even, like I said, like another 35 minutes before we get to even him as a child.
John, I'm gonna need you to calm down just a little bit. I understand you're very passionate.
This movie made me angry.
I need you to step back. And let's not forget about that gamma radiation overdose you suffered, and I want you to have your.
I gotta get that heart rate down. I know.
I get the heart rate down.
I also am gonna have to move again because I'll destroy another apartment building.
And that shirt, it'll just tear right up the back.
Yep.
So why don't you kick us off with plot? Yeah. And I understand you don't want to spend a lot of time yourself. You're like, I don't know, there's some other boring shit.
I wrote it all down though, man. I have every beat of it here written out, and I have multiple pages of notes. So
it's an interesting kickoff because the narration, it takes a while for us to realize the narrator isn't just this stock studio narrator. We find out, oh no, this is a major character that's narrating it.
Yeah.
We just haven't been introduced to him yet.
We don't even meet him until what, like 25 minutes into this movie.
Yeah, quite a ways.
Like I felt like Milhouse wanting to get to the fireworks factory somewhere in here. You know. And not even, I don't even mean werewolf. I just mean the main character.
It's interesting that that the character we start with is a character that we are made to, and it makes sense, made to feel a lot of sympathy for.
Mm-hmm.
It was treated horribly, but then this character that we felt sympathetic for is the one that will do the heinous act that will cause Leon's birth.
It's kind of a bad screenwriting choice.
I think this is an example of someone who was following a novel, and the novel, he was just following the beats of the novel and cutting out the more controversial stuff. A lot of the controversial stuff involved Leon as an adult, his world travels, and the fact he has an incestuous relationship. He's not called Leon in the book. Incestuous relationship with his mother, who doesn't die in the book.
Oh.
She also raises him with the adoptive father and the nice house woman who is in the movie. But there's a lot of, again, like I said, there's a lot of sexual stuff, and there's also a lot of world travel that they literally just like because he gets involved in war, he becomes a
Yeah.
soldier, and so they were like, well, we can't afford all that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I have
also,
a feeling
I don't think we needed more backstory. But
no, that's true. But he was being a werewolf all during that too.
ooh,
So
werewolf and war. Now we're talking.
Franco-Prussian werewolf, bring it on!
Hell yeah.
But they couldn't do that.
No.
So he kept the parts from the novel he could use, and apparently decided to follow all the beats of the beginning of this poor beggar. But of course, this is also like a century before what would have happened in the novel. So
the movie opens very interestingly on the eyes of a werewolf and a hard zoom in.
Oh, yes.
And then I later realized, as I'm sitting 30-40 minutes in this movie, I'm like, oh, because they have to tell me there's going to be a werewolf, because there's no indication of that at any point in the first half of this film.
It's a pretty startling opening, simply because Oliver Reed, not blinking, but he's got the contacts in, which you can tell, and he's got the werewolf makeup on, but it's just a close-up of his eyes that are tortured and crying. And you're like, wow, that's an arresting choice to start off our werewolf movie, a crying werewolf.
Yeah.
And
I was in at that point. I'm like, ooh, show me more.
Hope you enjoyed that. Now we're in 1700s Spain, and there's a beggar.
I will say, when the title card came up, Spain, I was a little like, okay. Don't expect a Hammer movie to take place in Spain, but then again, everybody's going to be British anyway, so it doesn't really matter where these movies take place.
That's true. I loved that they would speak their total British, dialogue, but include "señor," and anytime they would throw in like a token Spanish word, it was always like, "Oh, that's great! Look at him trying. It's cute."
Yeah, they do. They do a lot of that. So anyway, yes, we open with the title card of Spain and this narrator going, well, one day a beggar came to town, and this beggar comes into town, and he's looking rough, and he's like, no one's around here. I don't understand.
Dirt painted all over him.
Oh, it's classic like movie hobo.
Movie hobo dirt.
Yeah.
The town is empty. He doesn't know why. Some guy says it's right here on this notice board. Can't you read? He's like, no.
I do love the take of no, I can't.
Yeah.
Like,
so I guess I can't get that. So then he wanders over to local tavern. And
by the way, the Hammer movies can't resist a bustling tavern. Just can't resist, man.
I think it's right up there with diaphanous nightgowns, which we don't really get in this movie.
We don't. And I was bummed. I didn't care.
We did get an extremely curvaceous.
Oh yeah, we talk about.
We'll
talk
about Yvonne Romaine.
Yeah, we do get plenty of heaving bosom in this movie, as these Hammer films are very wont to do. So he goes into this tavern, and everybody in there is celebrating. He's like, hey, what are you all celebrating? And they're like, oh, we're not happy about celebrating. We have to celebrate because, was it the Marquess?
Yes.
The Marquess, he's getting married today, and he told us we have to be happy about it.
Supposedly, all the peons, all the lower types in this village or town are being forced to celebrate the Marquess's wedding, even though, of course, they can't attend. And all of their money, all of the food they've gathered and raised, all of it has gone to the castle, where the big party is happening, the wedding.
Yeah.
But these people are still forced by decree to celebrate this wedding. So they're all like, we're in the bar drinking, whatever.
And so, there's one drunk guy who's just like, the wedding, who paid for that? Us. The feast, who paid for that? Us, and it's just, and then the beggars, they're like, wait, are you a beggar? And he's like, actually, I am. And he takes off his hat. They're like, no, what did we just say? We don't have any money.
They basically tell him, it's like, look, if you want a handout, go to the castle. They're the only ones who can help you. And he's like, okay, that sounds totally reasonable.
Yeah, the beggar's just like, well, I think I will then.
Well, since you put it that way.
Yeah.
So Beggar is off to the castle.
He heads to the castle.
That I think these are. Terrence Fisher was proud of this film. I think it's shot very well.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And I do think these sets. It would have been a shame that they didn't use them, because these are handsome.
Good sets.
This looks lush.
It does.
or
It looks much bigger than the movies we've watched before.
I still think it's funny that when the beggar gets to the castle, there's just a side door off to the. I mean, the dinner chamber where the big celebration's happening just has a side door that opens to the outside. Literally, the beggar is just knocking on the door to the big.
Because we
dining
cut to
chamber.
this feast is going on in celebration of the wedding.
I jumped ahead a little bit. Yes.
Yeah. And they bring out all this food and everybody's laughing and having a good time with this feast. And then finally, this chef brings out what looks to be almost like a stuffed goose. It doesn't look like a goose you would eat. It's
no, that's the thing. It is a stuffed goose. The goose has just been hollowed out, and whatever pate or whatever they've made.
Now I've got it.
They put inside the body of the goose, so the goose is posed like it's in flight.
Because
but
there's
the
one
food
thing I want to, if I'm eating something, I want to be remembered of what it looked like when it was alive. That's really good and helpful.
Yeah.
Well, because the Marquesa doesn't like this at all. She's quite turned off by this.
I thought that, by the way, I like the commentary here. Speaking of Oliver Reed's marriage, the Marquesa, thank you. She is young and lovely.
Yeah.
And the Marquess is this older, middle-aged guy who's really awful. And I'm like, that's
Anthony
a royal
Dawson,
wedding.
who plays the Marquese here.
He is movie. He's like movie melodrama, community theater evil, and he's unrepentantly terrible, and I like that.
Well, yes, but this is the first of two in this scene that brings me to my 007 corner this week.
I knew where one of them was.
Yes, but this is Anthony Dawson, who plays. By the way, I don't know if they ever say his name fully, but I love that he's an evil Marquese, and he is the Marquese Siniestro.
Yes. They actually do say his name, but it flew by me. It wasn't until I looked at the IMDb, I was like, his name was actually Sinestro?
Yeah.
And I should have known because he does pull out a yellow ring.
I know.
Later in the film. And it talks about the weaponers of Quard. But yeah, that's really.
So this guy,
you need to go to the castle of Baron McEvil.
I know, exactly. This guy, though, Scottish actor, Anthony Dawson, is in 2 007 films. He plays Professor Dent in Dr. No. He's in the very first Bond movie. Yeah, Professor Dent, a memorable character there. And
is he the guy that's killed at the very beginning?
He's the guy that is killed in Dr. No's hideout later before we see Dr. No, but he's got him captured, remember? He's in the yeah, he's that guy.
Yes, okay, yes.
Yeah.
I did not recognize him from Bond. It's the next name you're going to drop is the one I recognize, of course. But anyway, keep going.
He's also the first actor to play Ernst Stavro Blofeld in a film.
What?
Yes, he plays
in Casino Royale.
Well, okay, not in Casino Royale.
Well, because Blofeld's not in Casino Royale, is he?
No, that's Le Chiffre is the villain of that.
Yeah,
he plays. You don't see his face, but he is Ernst Stavro Blofeld in From Russia with Love.
He's just the arm.
Yeah, and doing the voice.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, how would I have known?
Yeah, no, there's no way you would have known that. Even I didn't know that. I recognized him as Professor Dent.
First Blofeld.
But then going to his IMDb page and seeing him as that was, wow.
You're blowing my mind.
Yeah.
But then he was born to be evil.
Yes, and of course also appeared in Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, this guy, just everything about him, yes, says evil. And he is, I don't even think he's chewing. I think he's just swallowing scenery in this film.
Yeah. No, why chew?
Yeah, that's just going straight down his gullet there.
So the whole thing is there's social commentary in this I enjoyed. Like all of the other aristocrats in this wedding dinner, they're all following his lead.
Yeah.
Like the goose comes out and he's amused and delighted by it. He applauds. Everyone's like going, they all start applauding like that looks amazing. But the Marquesa is like, oh, that's creepy. I don't like. She's looking at the goose and like, I don't like. And then he goes, oh, hold on. My wife doesn't like this. Why did you serve this?
Yeah.
My wife.
Why did you not know that she didn't like this?
And the chef's like, I didn't know. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have made it if I know. And he goes, that's no excuse. And he smacks the tray. The goose goes flying. All the food's on the floor. Then he makes the chef clean it up, pick up that stuff, and get it out of here.
Yeah, the
So he's
guy's
like,
slipping, sliding around the ground. Everybody's laughing at him.
yes. Well, first, the Marquess, he starts laughing, which then cues everybody it's safe to now mock this guy.
Look at this fucking idiot.
They're following his lead, and it's just, I like that. It's just sort of like, is he happy or not? Oh, he is happy. Now we're happy. Ha ha. So yeah,
and
we don't
then
like this guy.
In the middle of this, knock, knock, knock at that old side door, and we're back in 007 corner because I couldn't believe
me either. My
who
brain
opened this door.
And has two lines of dialogue.
Yeah. The legendary Desmond Llewellyn, Q himself.
Q himself opens the door, and he's in a powdered wig.
Yeah.
And I recognize him immediately, and I'm like, oh my God, Q, what are you... And I didn't check the size of his hands. I'm sorry, Matt Corley. I don't know where on the scale...
The golden eye plus or minus we're dealing with here.
But I do like the way he tells the beggar that the tray that he's holding can also be used as a laser reflective device. No,
if you push the button here, that's always the
no, 007. Yeah. Treat that carefully. You know that explodes.
I mean, the one I always do is the ejector seat. You must be joking. I never joke about my work, 007.
Oh, and, God, I love you. I love him.
You know, my friend Ibrahim Mustafa, Bond aficionado, loves the one he always does is and there are gold coins here and here in the suitcase in From Russia with Love.
From Russia with Love is possibly the last one that deals with not totally sci-fi-ish spy gear. That's still early enough to where the spy gear and From Russia with Love is all very plausible. And in fact, those kinds of suitcases where it's like, here are the hidden papers, here's a backup identity, here's some coinage you'll need. All that is actual spycraft.
Yeah, he's got all he has in that movie is a suitcase. It has a knife in it, gold coins, and if you don't turn the latches correctly, it shoots smoke out when you open it.
Yeah,
that's that's not, that crazy. But that's, that's it. The next movie, he's got a car that can eject a guy, and and Goldfinger's got a laser. It's all pretty wild by the time we get to Goldfinger.
We are in Bond's territory again, which, hey, it's the movie's fault.
Look, when you it's one thing to have Professor Dent from Dr. No, but I'm sorry, Q shows up in this movie. I just have all in caps with exclamation points in my notes. Desmond Llewellyn.
I know, and it's great to see him. It's also sad that you're like, at this point, I mean, I know he was just a character actor.
I mean, he's 2 years away from appearing as Q for the first time in From Russia with Love.
Yeah, but you're like, wow, he gets a line. Yeah. And you're like, oh.
I mean, this is one of the rare times I've ever seen him not in a Bond movie.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it kind of just became his thing.
Yeah. And then you would see him, he would do every video game, every promotional video, everything for... I think my favorite one is for the PlayStation 2 Tomorrow Never Dies game, is him going like, oh yes, I'm playing this new exciting game. You're like, Desmond Llewellyn doesn't give a shit about video games.
But you also can see his hands in that commercial, which I do remember, and they're shaking. You're like, that is an elderly man holding a game controller.
And his hands are 4 times the size of the controller. Anyway, that's 007 corner. I don't believe we have any more Bond veterans in this thing, but
we're gonna have to see.
If we do, well, I do want to point out that the Marquesa here is played by Josephine Llewellyn, no relation to Desmond Llewellyn.
Yeah,
because I thought when I saw that on the IMDb, I'm like, oh my god, did he get one line but bag the Marquesa here? No,
just so very British last name, I guess. They're like, oh, you two should meet. What are you guys, cousins or something?
Oh, anyway, delightful to see the great Desmond Llewellyn, but unfortunately it lasts too short a time.
I thought he would show back up later, and he didn't. I mean, later in this time frame that we're in, but he didn't. He doesn't even show up in the rest of the scene.
No.
So I guess he stepped away He's not watching
He's
the beggar dance.
uncredited, by the way. He's not even in the cast list. So are a lot of people. Back then, it was not you didn't credit every single person that appeared like we do now.
That's true.
So anyway, the beggar is brought in and is immediately humiliated because the Marquess is like, "Oh, we're terribly sorry we started without you."
Yeah, it's hilarious that you're asking for food.
Yeah.
And we're going to mock your very existence right now for no good reason. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, and the Marquesa says, "Don't tease him, my God."
He said we should feed him, give him some food. He's like, "No, first let's give him some wine."
Well, no, first I will buy him for you as a pet.
Oh yeah.
How much to buy you, sir?
Yeah. What's your price?
Yeah. And then he throws money at him, and they all laugh as he scampers around to collect the coins on the ground. I'm watching this going like, I thought this was a werewolf movie, but this is more brutal than any werewolf killing. Jeez.
It's ugly, and it's supposed to be. Yeah. And again, you feel instant sympathy, and they go even farther. This is like those, classic Westerns, even Twilight Zone Western episodes, where it's like the town drunk, and they're like, what do you do for a drink? Will you dance for us? Mm-hmm. And it's just all about, look how pathetic you are as a human being. So this kind of cruelty of them, he buys the guy for the Marquesa, who seems sympathetic, but only to a certain degree. Like, stop teasing him, give him something. And then they give him wine, so he's getting drunk already. And he's begging for food. I'd rather eat first because I don't. No, drink. So then they're going, oh, but you can't just be fed without dancing or singing for us. He goes, I can't sing. You can dance for us. I can't dance. Everybody can dance.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And they get the band to play.
And they're yucking it up and clapping, and he's dancing around.
Drunk beggars dancing around. And finally, he collapses. They throw him some bones. And then they're like, okay, now he's your pet. He says,
come on, beg for it like a dog. And then he throws it on the ground. And just like, good God.
Yeah, it's terrible. So then they're like, great. And then the narrator basically goes, and then they put him in the dungeon and forgot about him.
Yep. They threw him in dungeon, and they was like, what now? Guy in dungeon? And he appears to be the only person in the dungeon for decades.
It's true. It's true. And they do say that, years and years passed.
Yeah.
And the only people that even remembered he was there were the dungeon keeper.
Yeah.
And his mute daughter.
Yep.
Who is sympathetic because she's a cute little mute girl.
Mm-hmm.
So she feeds the beggar, and even though he is getting hairier and older,
I love the way his arm hair is coming up his hands and stuff. Is he a werewolf?
No, but I
think he has. I mean, because I just love the idea of like that shows time. I'm not shaving my arm hair, and it's like coming. Yeah. He previously had no hair in his hands. Now he's covered in it. He's got
I think
the Hobbit equivalent of feet on his hands.
I think they're trying to just indicate it's like, look, he's devolved to an animalistic state, so let's make it visual as well because of what's going to come down the pike. He's become more animal than human, and so even though she's kind to him and he winks at her and she smiles like, oh, it's the sad old dude in the cage. They obviously can't converse. I don't know why the beggar can't talk anymore and doesn't, but he doesn't in these scenes. But then we time lapse even further, and now we find out that the dungeon guy is dead. Mm-hmm. The dungeon keeper's dead, so it's just the daughter taking care of him.
Yeah.
And the daughter is now, holy hell. All right,
look out, man.
This is okay. I mean, this is Hammer, and it's what I expect.
Yeah,
but it's also kind of crazy for a film that is this sumptuous, and actually the costuming, the sets, it's all looking. I'm not going to say dead accurate, but it's very good historical representation. But this woman, who is just a keeper of a certain part of this castle, she is decked out. I mean, she's not decked out. She's wearing peasant's clothing, but still, she's got eyeliner. She's got perfect 60s makeup. She's a beautiful woman, clearly a model cast in this part, because Hammer's like, Here you go, fellas. She even has a pretty big placement on the poster above the actual love interest in this film who has dialogue. So this woman has no dialogue. This is Yvonne Romaine. She is
Yvonne Romaine. Yeah. Still with us, by the way.
Well, God bless her.
82 years old, still alive.
She is stunning.
Yeah.
She is very voluptuous.
Yes.
And even though it's not a diaphanous nightgown, her peasant gear, they're like going, here you go, fellas. This is what you paid for.
Yeah.
It's like,
hey,
guy in the United States. Hey, Hammer fan number 1 in the U.S. This is for you. Oh, thank you very much. It just cracked me up.
Yes, all right then.
She doesn't even have like the token dirt smudge on her cheek or anything to denote. She is just a perfectly presented, beautiful woman.
I just did a Google search on Yvonne Romaine, and there's a promotional picture from this movie that if you want to do that as well, I would point people towards, which is her and the werewolf, who never share the screen, and it is just the werewolf and her cleavage, and that's the photo, basically.
Yeah, but that's even creepier when you're going, mom and son.
When she's got her hand, like, on his chest hair and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah. Mm-hmm. It seems like she and the werewolf are together and are scared of something off camera. She's not frightened by the werewolf. It's like, leave my werewolf boy alone.
They were showing advance reviews just off camera, and they were startled.
They said, what? Oh, it is boring.
So I'm not saying that she can't act. This is the only thing I'm familiar with her from. She probably ended up in other things.
She is.
And she's okay, but she's mute. You know, so again, that's handy to have this very beautiful
Hey, don't open your mouth, honey.
It's what I was thinking halfway into.
Yeah.
But the point is, it took me out a little bit because it's like, oh, come on. Shouldn't she
she
look
acted
a little rougher?
In a bunch of stuff prior to this. This is far from her first thing. Okay. 52, she starts acting.
So she was already going for about 9 years?
Yeah, she's in a bunch of the Errol Flynn Theater. She was on an episode of The Buccaneers.
I also felt it kind of funny. Not that she comes off as, it's just that
she's in an episode of Twilight Zone.
We don't know exactly how long a time has passed, but when she does get brought in and taken care of by the nice people later in the movie, and the nice housekeeper lady keeps going, oh, you poor child, this little girl. And I'm like going, that is a 25-year-old woman, clearly.
And there's nothing little about her.
There's nothing little about her. And with, of course, as I keep pointing out, the 60s cat eye eyeliner, I just going, that is not what a peasant girl in
Yvonne Romaine never appeared in James Bond, but was in an episodes of both Danger Man and The Saint.
Man, she was just floating around in that world. I'm surprised she didn't show up, actually.
Well, she's definitely got the look of a Bond girl.
She does.
Yeah.
And again, she does a fine job here. I just couldn't believe that she was the character that she's supposed to be.
Yeah, it is very much like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this poor girl. And you're just like, no, she's a flat-out stunner and is made up in every way to be that. It's emphasized in every sense.
Even after the scene, which we'll be talking about soon, when she's supposed to have encountered, she's been through the ringer. They just smudged a little, like they made her look a little sweaty and glistening, and her hair was mussed and had hay in it. But I'm like going, still.
Well, she's got like a few scratch marks across her chest, which, if anything, are just drawing you more to the cleavage.
Yeah. I don't know what point you're trying to make there, John. It was fine. So anyway,
it all works for me.
That's who we're introduced to here. This is the grown-up mute caretaker of the prison, of the dungeon. She's still feeding the beggar, who's now even shaggier and older.
Yeah, and he's now eating this meat like an animal. She gives him like a turkey leg, like nom, 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 nom.
Yeah. And then for some reason, even though she's grown up in this castle, the next thing we see is the voiceover tells us the Marquesa died.
Due to the constant strain of having to listen to the Marquess.
The Marquess is still alive, but he's become kind of a hermit in his castle.
Yes, and as I wrote here, with his costume and makeup, he's gone full on Scrooge.
Yeah, it actually Marley's ghost.
Yeah.
I think the makeup on the werewolf is really good.
Yes.
I think it's a good design, and I think it's well
It's
done.
great.
And I think it deserved a lot more screen time. But this makeup, thanks to the Technicolor of this is jarring. When we see the Marquez years later, he is not just spotty old guy. He has this corpse-like pallor, and he's got all these boils and pustules. It's very gross. It's supposed to be not only elderly, but really disgusting.
Right.
That's fine. I don't mind that. But the problem is the Technicolor makes it so clear where the latex of this face piece ends.
Yeah.
Because they haven't done anything with his hands or the rest of his body. So it looks like he's had this sort of sickly gray-green face glued on. And you're like, wow, that doesn't look convincing at all. Because the skin tone is not naturalistic, even for someone who's stayed out of the sunlight for years and is a gross old dude.
No, the skin tone is this weird, muddy gray pallor. It's very,
it's very jarring.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is...
And he also apparently turned into a monster?
Yeah. He's not just old, he's become monstrous. Because at this point, she brings him food.
Yep.
And what blew me away was
the only person working here. She's the jailer.
Seemingly.
I guess now she's inherited the job of jailer to the one person that's been in the dungeon for decades, and she brings food to the Marquez.
I can't believe that Marquez doesn't know who she is. She has lived in this castle since she was a child.
What's your name, little girl?
And he's like, what's your name? He's being creepy, and she can't tell him because she can't speak.
Yeah.
And he's like, such insolence, and he tries to, of course, get it on with her. He gets all handsy, and she's like, no. And then he rings the bell or whatever.
She bites him in the hand.
Oh, right. She bites him on the hand.
And runs away, and that's when he's like, guards!
Yeah. Teach her a lesson. She needs to be more friendly to me, if you know what I mean.
And so
they throw her in the dungeon.
Yeah.
With the old beggar.
Which I thought, well, he likes her. This will be fine. Oh, was I wrong about this?
I will say this movie at least left it open to be like, well, the Marquess is a monster. What if he's the one who's the father of the werewolf? But no, this movie makes it clear who the father of the werewolf is.
The character that they spent the first 5 to 6 minutes of the movie making you feel all the sympathy in the world for is now an animalistic, psychotic rapist.
He sees that the mute girl is now in his cell.
Mm-hmm.
And even though she has been kind to him her entire life, he's mad, he's crazed, and he's licking his lips basically, and drooling essentially, and leaps on her. And this is where this is daring for its day. It's a rape scene, which you just didn't see a lot on film anyway. They don't go into any detail. In fact, they jump away instantly.
He grabs her, they go below camera, and the camera, they pretty much cut almost right there.
So I wonder what else was cut, but I do know this is where the censors were going. Apparently the censors wanted to cut the entire scene until the filmmakers were saying, this is the plot. This is an origin of, we have to include this because this is how we get our lead character. And they're like, all right.
I guess if you have to.
They cut to afterwards, and that's where she's a little mussed and dirtied up. And then the jailers come back.
And the beggar's dead.
The beggar's dead.
Yeah.
Apparently the rape took everything out of him.
That's all he had left, and then his heart exploded, presumably. And so...
I'm sorry, but fellas, if you saw Yvonne Romaine, that's terrible.
I'm just saying, I don't think this guy even has the... I mean, all these years he's in here, I'm not sure he would have the stamina to even the consideration of doing anything with her would have probably killed him.
I'd say touching her shoulder, he'd probably just pop right there. Brain just goes.
Nope.
That's
it for me. Worth it.
Checking out. So the jailers, or the not the jailers, but the
guards, the Marquez guards.
Have you learned your lesson? And then they make a joke about the dead beggar, like, oh, look at that, he's all done. And then they take her out, and then she's right back in the job of taking creepy Marquez's food.
Well, the guards are even like, oh, you know where you're gonna have to go now. So basically, I'm just like, I'm sorry. Are we just going from rape to rape here? Is this the kind of picture I'm watching?
It seems like that's where it's headed.
Yeah.
And he does. The Marquez now is like, have you learned your lesson? Are you friendly now? And goes for her, and
I do like this scene quite a bit though,
this is
because
great
she just
because
stabs the fuck out of him.
she's holding some implement. I'm not sure what it is,
Looks
but
like it
it's
came
sharp
off of
and
the
pointy.
wall or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, like a sconce or something, but
Yeah.
it's pointy. So he comes in for the and she just goes nope in her mute way and stabs the fuck out of him with this thing.
That's why I like
and
it's not a stab and run. It's stab, stab again, stab a few more times. This guy is dead. And you're
He is
seeing
very
it, the blood's coming out of him. We're going there.
I know that part you enjoyed.
Oh,
John,
I like this
'cause
a lot. I was like, hell yeah.
I liked it again because I like payback. So
Yeah.
it was like good on her for
Well, I was also
empowering
just
herself.
thrilled I didn't have to see this woman be raped again.
Yes.
That was also it's
Uh,
just like what's going on here?
she runs from the castle. She apparently wanders the woods and passes out.
Well, the narration says she wanders the woods for
Months.
becoming like an animal.
Yeah, we can keep bringing
They're
that
trying
up.
to really drive home the animal thing here
And
because
this is where the narrator goes, and this is where I enter the story. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, you're a character. Okay.
I even wrote narrator finds her because I don't know who the hell this guy is. Turns out this is Alfredo.
Yeah, he's actually Don Alfredo.
It's interesting.
He's
IMDb just credits him as just Alfredo, but this is
He's a
Clifford Evans.
he's landed gentry. He's not one of the peons. He's obviously not the Marquess, but he's a very upper middle class nice person.
Yes.
And he takes her back to his house where for a long time I thought, is this his wife?
Oh,
But
I
no,
had a
it's
hell
just
of a
his
time
house.
trying to figure out what their relationship was. Yeah, for a while.
I kind of thought it was very modern because they don't seem romantic, but it also doesn't seem very master and servant.
No, the way they talk with each other felt very not romantic, but very familiar, very like husband and wife in that sense.
They're introduced with him in the kitchen, and she just keeps batting his hands away from when he's trying to do things. So you're like going, I like this relationship, whether they're together or not. They are clearly
I
equals.
was rooting for them to get together the whole movie, though.
I like
he never does take a wife.
Clifford Evans, who plays Alfredo. I really enjoyed, and I thought Hyra Talfrey is her name, who played Teresa. They're both really good, and I liked them. But you're supposed to. They are good.
I'm glad you like
Christian
Clifford Evans because we're going to see him again in a couple weeks. So
yeah, he's very decent here, and that's the whole thing. Is he's brought this poor woman in, and the housekeeper is very happy to look after her, and then says, oh, we have to take care of her because she hasn't lost the baby yet. And then he goes, what?
the baby?
Yeah, so he found her basically lying face down in a pond.
Yeah.
But she's alive and the baby is okay. So she's pregnant from the rape.
Yeah.
And Teresa, the housekeeper, who's very, very loving and sweet, takes care of her.
Mm-hmm.
And they're figuring out when the baby might be born.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, the baby's probably going to be born on Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? And Alfredo's like, that sounds nice. Why not?
They're like,
because
no,
you don't get it.
An unwanted baby born on Christmas Day is an insult to the Lord himself. Which, does this need to be here? Do we need to add this on top of other things that are cursing this?
This movie is all about, well, I guess so. This movie is all about heaping folklore on weird,
but
isn't
it already
psycho...
he's a monster because he was born of a monstrous... I mean, now it's an insult to God that he was born on the... I just like, my God.
Yeah,
I mean, how much foreshadowing do we have to do that this kid's evil?
There's some really hilarious foreshadowing coming up. We're not even to it yet.
No.
But oh my God, that scene! I was like, oh, that's so far overboard. Anyway, so
I think something might be wrong with this kid. I don't know.
But it doesn't matter. They like this poor woman, the mute woman. They're taking care of her, and they're just hoping the baby isn't born on Christmas because of that. But it turns out the Christmas bells start ringing.
Yep.
And the baby's being born, and also the Teresa. It's never implied, but she is from perhaps Romani stock. She is perhaps a traveler because she's the one who keeps bringing up all these superstitions and folklore.
Yeah.
And she has an elder of her people come in and is doing a bunch of burning of the sage
Yes.
and muttering incantations and trying to bless this, send the evil away from this poor pregnant girl.
Right.
But the baby's still born on Christmas. Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas, it's a baby. And almost immediately that this baby's born, our jailer's daughter dies instantly.
Yeah, they show the baby to her, and she's very happy.
Yeah.
And then just eyes flutter up, and she's dead.
Yeah.
And I think that was Anthony Hines going, well, I guess I could have her stick around the plot, but she and her son then have an incestuous. You know what? I'm going to cut that. That was in the book. You know what? I'm going to cut that.
He just deletes a few things. He goes, she's dead.
She's dead, and Alfredo will be taking care of the baby now. They name it Leon.
I do want to talk about Alfredo's badass pipe.
Oh, it is. It's very nice scrimshaw carved ivory pipe.
Yeah, and it's so ornate though that it was distracting to me in scenes. I'm going like, why would you put this pipe in the movie?
What's the design on it? I did kind of like go, what is? Are they animals? What's carved?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, and I'm going like, if this isn't important to the plot, this is a bad move on props because I'm just going like, what is this? Look at that pipe.
For half a second, I was sitting there going, oh, what if it's wolves? I was like, that would be really awesome, but they never zoom in close enough for me to actually. I couldn't tell. But it is. It's a very nice.
I didn't realize this till the end of the movie, but they're not. I mean, obviously they're working with Universal, so they conceivably could have done a full-on Wolfman movie, conceivably.
Well, they didn't get the rights to that.
No, but they're working with Universal at this point, so I mean, they could have tried for the rights.
Like maybe Universal only gave them the rights to the Mummy, Jekyll and Hyde, which they never did. No, Invisible Man, which they never did.
Right.
And
which I'm shocked they never did that. Too complicated.
It is
effects wise.
I think probably the effects are probably too complicated and expensive, especially in Technicolor. They're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And Phantom of the Opera, which they're.
But what I was going to say though is this there is still this father-son relationship at the center of it, like in the Universal Wolfman.
Very true.
And it is
very true.
Spoilers. Ultimately, the father who has to bring the wolf down.
Dude, these people are. I just heard everyone hanging up. They were just waiting to hear that. And, I'm literally hearing people shutting this podcast off.
That's it, man.
Thanks, John. Spoiler alert, Campbell.
Well, I'll tip my hand on that, but I'm also not recommending people watch this. So,
I am. But with reservations.
Well, I'll say watch it, but skip to 47 minutes in. So then we get to, I think, the scene we both want to talk about, which is this christening scene.
The christening scene. So now the child has been adopted by Alfredo, but Teresa is also there, and she will be called Aunt Teresa.
Yeah. And he's uncle throughout the movie until the last third of it when he becomes father all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable, I guess.
Well, I mean, he could have called him father from the start. It's just he calls him uncle for the majority of the movie, and then only at the end he's like, father.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I didn't even track that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you saying this movie is less than perfect? Because I'm not following you.
I'm saying it's quite a bit less than perfect.
So they've brought the baby to be christened in a very nice church, which is not a set. I'm sure they filming on set on some church
just down the street from the studio, probably
completely empty, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's no one around.
The extras. But so they're baptizing it, and as the priest who's doing the Latin is about to dip into the pool of the holy water, the holy water starts to boil.
Yeah,
it starts to ripple,
and everybody's kind of like,
And then storm clouds roll in, and there's thunder and lightning, and they are kind of like,
yeah.
But not as startled as I would be. And then reflected in the pool.
This is the best.
is a demon's face, which is
Yeah.
clearly a carving, and then they look up, and of course it's a reflection of a carved
Yeah.
gargoyle demon in the church
And
in the water.
I love the way the priest though is just like, oh, yeah, it's just that thing.
Yeah, the reactions in the scene I was laughing at because it was sort of like, oh, that's like because when the thunder rolls, also he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, I'm not. Oh, this is bad stuff. All this calms down, and then he just keeps going. Then he finishes up.
Yeah.
He finishes the baptism. I'm like going, I don't know it.
Yeah, multiple times the priest is like, uh-oh. Oh, no, wait, there's an explanation. Never mind. No explanation for the boiling water, though. That just
Horror
happened.
movies where you walk in, and the voice is like, "Get out!"
Yeah.
And the windows and doors are slamming, and things are leaping off the counter, and it's like going, I don't know if there's enough closet space in here. Like they're just ignoring some sort of voice of the other world. So that did it cracked me up.
Yeah.
But Leon is baptized, and now we're going to cut to rural antics.
So yeah, then we cut to Pepe the Hunter.
Pepe the Hunter.
Pepe, interesting choice of name for this character.
It's Spain. Why would that be in? It's every now and then the movie's like, guys, this is Spain, okay?
But it's just like he's a hunter character, and his name is Pepe.
Pepe.
Being a Muppets fan, I can't not think of Pepe the King Prawn.
Well, I'll forgive you for that.
That's my own issue. So yeah, he's walking along, and he sees there's a goat with its throat slit open on the ground, and he's like, he basically just turns to his left and is like, "Hey, farmer, you lose one of your goats?" And the guy's like, no, I got all my goats. He's like, well, there's a dead one up here. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you.
He goes, and then he accuses the guy's dog. And he goes, no, my dog, he's sitting right here. He's been here all day. And if he had killed a goat, he'd have blood all over him. Like,
and
no, it's not my dog.
It does
Shut
cut to the most chill-looking dog. It's not doing anything.
And he's like, well, then it must be a wolf. And I believe correctly, you're paid to make sure there are no wolves on this land. So get to work, you lazy bastard.
And Pepe pulls at his collar. Is like, ooh, okay.
Okay, I guess it's on me.
So then Pepe's walking further, and he walks by Alfredo's house, and Teresa's outside, and he goes, "Oh yeah, wolf killed a goat back there." And she goes, "Oh, then that wolf must have also gotten this kitten that I found dead in the yard earlier. It was really torn up." And he's like, "Yeah, it's not good."
That kitten belonged to Leon, and he's going to be very sad.
I couldn't let him see because we established here Leon can't stand the sight of blood. Yeah, remember when I took him out hunting? He wouldn't even kill that squirrel. Yeah. So we're like, oh, well, certainly Leon is not any kind of werewolf then.
He doesn't like dead animals or the sight of blood, so clearly he's a sensitive kid.
And so then we get the kid coming down the stairs, and I will say, this kid is a dead ringer for Oliver Reed.
I gotta say, the kid's, a kid actor. He does a decent job with lisping cutely and saying, "I have terrible nightmares, father, or uncle." Mm-hmm. But it is amazing that they pegged this kid, hair, eyes, color. I was like, this kid looks like a young Oliver Reed. It's dead on.
This is one of only 2 performances he ever gave on film.
Shame.
He does this and then a movie called The Idiot in 1966, and then that's it. But I was just amazed when he came on screen. I was just like, shit, that's a little Oliver Reed.
It was just eerie.
Yeah.
And
I had to go and look on IMDb. I'm like, was this his cousin or nephew or something? No.
It looked that close. It could have been, yes, a relative.
Like, I know that like on Doctor Who where they had little Amy Pond and it was Karen Gillan's cousin who did look just like her.
Adorable. Yeah. Or this upcoming Sopranos prequel movie that will have James Gandolfini's son playing young Tony Soprano.
Very curious how that's going to go. I'm very curious about that movie.
Fingers are crossed. We'll see. Yeah. But he does look like his dad as a young man.
He really does.
There you go.
Yeah. Always dangerous though when you're revisiting a legitimate classic.
Yep. I know you're worried, but I
Yeah.
think you just need to take it a day at a time, John. Just a day at a time.
Yeah, luckily I have till like the fall to really see that
Right.
movie and prepare myself to see more Sopranos. um, okay, so yeah, then the kid's coming down the stairs, and we establish he's not eating. He says, "I'm not hungry." And she says, "You didn't have lunch or dinner yesterday. You're gonna have some pancakes right now, young man."
Yeah.
Which I've never turned down pancakes in my life.
No. Why would you? They're delicious. They could turn the Antichrist away from hell.
Yeah.
I read Hellboy.
As do
but
I.
He has discovered the pancakes. But yeah, we get an idea that maybe he's eaten other things.
Right. And so then we go from this to he's the mayor, I think, of the town or something here.
Yeah,
this guy
the town mayor
who's like, "Hey, I'm officially ordering you, Pepe, to kill these wolves. All right, you've got to do it, man. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what it costs. You're on thin ice, pal. You should have gotten to these wolves." I mean, like, they're really on Pepe to know the wolves are going to strike before they even have evidence of it. This wolf kills one dog, one goat, and a cat, and they're like, "What the fuck, man?"
Yeah, they shame him pretty badly, and it's that the same goat herder guy is the one that's turned him in. Like, how dare you accuse my dog?
These
I'm gonna
two
go turn
have
you
a little two-hander subplot in this movie.
Yeah, I know, which is unnecessary in a movie that, again, we need more werewolf.
Yeah,
just generally speaking.
This is about the time when I'm starting to go, are we going to see a werewolf soon?
You're not, John. You're not.
Oh, no. No, we're not going to see a werewolf for still quite a while.
But we get hints, and essentially...
And that would be fine if this were the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
But we're already a half hour plus into this movie.
I think you still need mute girl being raped by... I mean, we still need to see the origin.
I think you do, but I think that could have easily been condensed.
Yes. All of this could have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me get that script. I could fix this thing right up.
So let me ask you this.
Okay, I'm here.
The girl's mute. Yeah. How did they know any of that shit happened?
She learned how to write in the few months while she was in their care.
Yeah, that's as good an answer as we're getting.
She got really good at sign language.
That they also learned.
Oh, so your father took care of the dungeons for the market. Okay. Yeah. I'm following.
Yeah.
There's a beggar. Okay.
Yeah.
And at some point
she just pantomimed the whole thing.
Been bought.
Just like charades.
Okay. Yeah, wow. It is a lot of information to have.
Especially because the person telling us all this is Alfredo in the narration, so presumably he knows this whole story.
I would assume that parts of it were local legend, like the beggar going to the wedding and then being bought and thrown in the dungeon. Yeah. That's traveled.
Sure, but that's a big jump to he then raped this woman and this child must be his,
bestial offspring.
Yeah, because they have a lot of information to put two and two together that he's a werewolf here.
So here's the thing. Leon is a precocious child raised by loving adoptive parents who take care of him.
Yeah.
But it's just not enough. We find out that, we do see that Pepe is good at his job.
Well, because we see him out. He's out there. We're out at night waiting with his rifle, and he sees the full moon. He hears a wolf howl, and then he's like, "There he is!" and shoots. We don't see the wolf. We just see it. It's off screen, and he fires, and then he runs over to where the wolf was, and there's a big puddle of blood. He's like, "Well, I definitely hit him.
I definitely hit that thing." And then he goes to the bar and is like, "Yeah, it was a young wolf. I shot it. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I killed it. Where is it? I don't know."
Yeah. So it's anyway, our wolf troubles are probably over.
Yeah, probably over.
We then cut to Leon in bed, and he's real sweaty, and they're doing some kind of work on his leg, and Alfredo pulls out a ball from a rifle. I mean, it wouldn't have been a bullet at the time.
Right.
And they're like, "When did this kid get shot?"
Yeah, it's like, how did you even leave the you couldn't have left from the.
Yeah.
Did he go out the window?
Yeah.
And then they're like, did you leave? And Leon isn't lying. He goes, no, I just went to bed.
Yeah.
But I had these terrible dreams.
Yes. In fact, he has bad dreams every night.
Every night. And Alfredo, again, very cool. I liked these parents.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't immediately go, how dare you? Don't lie to me.
Yeah.
They're like going, tell me more about the dreams. What happened in the dreams? And he talks about, he basically dreams he goes out and kills things. And
well, he talks about when he went out with Pepe. Pepe killed this squirrel, and he went over to the squirrel and tried to kiss it back to life because he's a little kid. And that when he tasted the blood tasted sweet. And, Uncle, I wanted more blood. And at this point, I'd be like, this kid's the son of Satan. Oh, my God. We got to do something. I would have already had the priest on the horn at this point.
I would have snapped like, hey, you remember that thing that happened at the baptism?
Yeah.
Yeah, something's up.
You know, I had completely forgotten about that until right now. But you're right. That kind of was a weird baptism. Now that you mention it, that was a little
time
odd.
I've ever seen holy water boil, but you know, these things do slip your mind.
And he says, "When in my dreams, my mouth is full of blood," and I'm like, "Holy God!" And then when Alfredo looks at his arm, the palm of his hand has hair on it all the way down his arm, which means either he's a werewolf or he's been touching himself too much, right?
Hello. Well, I mean, this movie is striking lots of overt chords of like, look, a lot of the werewolf mythology is tied in with a sexual urge and the uncontrollable evil impulses of libido. So yeah, a little bit of that is, they would say, like hair on the palms of the hands, but that was also vampires, supposedly. Dracula has it in the novel. But and also the eyebrows meeting over the nose was another like telltale sign, even though of course that isn't there. The mark of the pentagram, I don't think that was ever anything except for the movie, The Wolfman. But so they're touching on that, and it's the kids, you know, good enough in the scene where it's like, and Alfredo does contact the priest pretty immediately. They do have that talk.
First, Teresa goes over to Pepe's house, and he's not there, but his wife is, and she's showing him the ball they pulled out of the leg.
Yeah, she's doing like the detective work, like going, "Does this bullet look familiar?"
Yeah, which. How does the wife identify that? Oh, that's definitely Pepe's, because it looks like any other ball fired out of any other musket at the time, doesn't it?
I will say, if you make your own musket balls, a lot of them did put a maker's mark on their own.
Yeah, but it would have been nice to have done a close-up of that then. Yeah. Yeah, I would. That would not have been a note I have had that done that. But of course, that simple thing escape. I'll just say this: this is the first one we've watched that isn't written by Jimmy Sangster, and I'm missing him.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Hines, I can only assume he really meant it, put his work into adapting this novel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it doesn't have the professionalism and gloss that
Sangster's
scripts.
over in America trying to pitch Bewitched episodes right now. But
he might in fact be.
I would really like to focus more on the horror of Samantha's witchcraft.
If you ever really stop to think about, she's a witch. They're an immortal magic sect of beings that probably have all made pacts with the devil. Have we introduced the devil to Bewitched at all? Like,
who's playing Satan this season?
Did you? I didn't see the first season. So was there a scene perhaps where she did kiss the devil's ass? For that is part of the ceremony. Surely you know that, right? Witchcraft. Hello. Hello. I just like the idea of whatever the Paramount or whoever executives backing out of the room. Hello?
Yeah.
I seem to be all alone.
Yeah. But don't turn the lights off. Oh.
I'm scared of the dark. Irony! Yeah, no, that's
this is missing we'll hear, I'm sure we'll hear more about Jimmy Sangster's adventures in American TV. But I will say this is missing, like, you know, Sangster's stuff isn't brilliant, but it's tight, it's focused. He's a good storyteller.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And I feel like if he had done a pass on this even, we would have had a better movie.
Just to tighten up the time frame and
that's the thing with
Put
this
the
movie
weight.
that I think why it makes me so mad is it's not terrible. You can see the good movie. It just needs work. It just needs to be honed.
Yeah, that's why I say misfire.
Yeah.
I don't think it works, but there's enough there where it's a shame
Yeah.
that they couldn't get it closer to the mark.
But those are honestly the more frustrating movies for me than the straight up terrible ones because you're like,
True.
oh, it was there. They just needed to mold it a little bit more. You just needed
Yes.
movies where any movie I see where I go like, just one more draft and you could have gotten this. Those really make me mad because if it's terrible, I can just go, well, I was just awful, and that's not what I
Again,
was
you
feeling.
know what, John? I think we should probably turn the podcast off and let you cool down. A
Yeah,
little bit.
I'm gonna need to.
This
I'm gonna
is
need
the
to take a
most
break.
aggressive you've been in.
I'm losing it,
almost
man.
40
I'm losing
almost
it.
40. How many episodes have we done, by the way?
We have done. Let's see. We did.
Almost 40.
Yeah, thereabout.
Wow.
Because we did. What did we end up doing? 29 on the first.
29 or 30.
Yeah, so we're in like the mid 30s now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah, and yet
I'm okay.
I'm still
okay.
getting
How
worked
about
up.
I still want to, yell at dead producers, directors, and
Could you have?
writers.
God damn it! You almost had it, you fool.
You almost had it. This could have been awesome.
So yeah, we have Teresa out doing ballistics forensic work,
Right.
and then we have Alfredo going to the priest, and he says, "Look, he's like, Father, what can you tell me about spirits, particularly evil spirits?"
Yeah.
And he says, he says it's quite possible little Leon may be possessed by one of these evil spirits. In fact, it's pretty common, but most people, when they're kids, their soul battles the spirit, and most men exercise the spirit before adulthood. I love all this stuff. This is great to me, where I'm just like, what are you talking about?
I love this stuff because it's a bold and daring choice for the movie to say, you know what? We could go the universal route, but instead we're going in this very pseudo-religious folklore aspect. So we're going to talk a lot about this idea of a dual soul in one body, where a person's actual God-given soul is too weak to fight off an inbound demonic spirit that is there since birth. So, and then he goes, and it can take the form of werewolves. And you're like, oh, okay. Another thing I thought was pretty bold about this movie is, and I liked it, is that no one dances around except for later. Like the obviously the people in positions of power are like, that stuff is nonsense. Pretty much everybody else, Alfredo, Leon himself, Teresa, the priest, they're all like going, yeah, werewolf, that's what he is. Like, there's no dancing around and like going, oh, surely it can't be. And then they have to see some tragic proof.
Right.
Instead, they're all going, no, that's it. I'm putting bars on the kids' windows, like right now.
Well, because the priest's definition of a werewolf is a body with a soul and spirit constantly at war. It's not that the evil spirit is taken over completely. But I was thinking at this point, we need to call in Max von Sydow. I think he could really handle the situation.
We need an old priest and a young priest.
Yeah. We need that duo.
The power of Christ compels you.
Mm-hmm. Still just the one good exorcism movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you said that, it suddenly made me like, well, I've seen a lot. Are any as good as no?
No, it's still just the one really good one.
Some can have some awesome parts to them, but only The Exorcist got
really holds together as a movie and is really good.
Yeah, and also got to the core of why that stuff. I'm not going to say it happen, but it gets to the realistic-ish core of that kind of a spiritual battle. Whereas the others all tend to make them horror movies. And The Exorcist, even though it's a horror movie, is not really setting out to be a horror movie. No, it's setting out to be a religious, spiritual battle film.
Yeah. And really,
very
in a lot of ways, it's just a character drama.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
So
it's just
it's
a
a very
compelling.
real movie.
It's like I bring that up because of the how did this get made? The quote that when they talk about Deep Blue Sea, that so still just the one good shark movie. Then yep, still just the one good shark movie. And that's how I feel about the Exorcism too. Still just the one good Exorcism movie.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So then they to talk about, was there anything we can do for him? And he's like, you have to love him. Love is the only cure. It won't cure him, but it'll keep the beast at bay, right? If you just love him enough, then he won't turn into a werewolf. And then like,
Yeah,
great,
again,
you got it, Father.
It's very simplistic, but it is very fairy tale folklore-ish. That it's like, that's it. It just boils down to that.
Yeah.
As long as he has this basis in love, people who really care about him, it will give his soul strength to fight back the dark part of him.
Then we cut to a scene that you want to talk about, a scene of foreshadowing that we don't need. This random drunk in the tavern who's here going like, I'll tell you, what I saw was no ordinary wolf, and strange things are abroad. And like, we've already built it up, man. Like,
oh, I don't want to backtrack too much, but can we talk for 1 second? When Pepe first walks into frame,
yeah,
literally his introduction to the movie with the rifle under his arm,
yeah,
and we don't know what he's seen, but apparently he has seen the dead goat.
Yeah.
The first thing he says, "What's all this then?"
He does. He
literally said it.
You're right.
And I laughed. I almost called you.
Hey, what's
Johnny
all this
said
then?
it. He said it. And I wouldn't have even had
You
to
know what?
explain.
I'm glad you brought that up because I thought it too, but I forgot to write it down. But yeah. Hey, what's all this then?
Oh my God, that killed me. All right, let's jump ahead another 20 minutes or so back to where we were.
I think he also says, "Hey, that dog, it's a naughty dog." And just like, God, how British can this get?
Very,
yeah.
Spain.
For a split second, I thought, is Michael Palin playing this Hunter character? What's all this then?
What's all this then?
Yeah. And then it's just Eric Idle in a beard as the farmer. Not my dog.
He's a good dog, he is. Oh, he's a fine dog.
Yeah. Oh, man. Was that what we I do wish they had made a horror movie, Monty Python. I think we did talk about that before. Yeah. It's just like, they could have done one of these Hammer type movies in their comedic sensibility, and it would have been really funny.
It would have been awesome.
Yeah. I mean, look, I would just do anything to have somehow through magic or time machine science more Monty Python movies, but
yeah,
you know, the three we got were all winners, so
they're all winners in their own way.
Yeah. All right, so then I do like that the next time, we see him. Alfredo's putting up bars on the window, going like, "Well, this will take care of your nightmares," and little Leon just like, "That's great."
Yeah, Leon is not. They don't tell him he's a werewolf. They know he is.
They do not, because they distinctly tell him as an adult that he's a werewolf at one point.
Yeah, so this is basically them just saying, well, this will keep your nightmares away.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty sweet way of getting around it. And again, the kid isn't evil, and he's like, great, thanks a lot. That's awesome. But we, of course, do cut to a scene of the full moon.
Yeah.
And the kid is that's a good scene, and actually the stills from that are often when you look up this movie, because the kid's got the fangs and is sweaty and scared.
I like that because he's werewolf
ripping the bars and he's growling.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Alfredo's in there like just pulling him back, like, okay,
yeah,
oh shit,
calm down, son, calm down. I love you, son.
I'm loving you, really. I'm sending a lot of love. Sending so much love.
Teresa, get in here and tell Leon how much you love him. What the priest said to do.
Love alarm. Stat. We need.
There's just a flashing red heart light on the wall going like, it's love.
Three love affirmations.
Yeah. Get the neighbor over here. He loves Leon, kind of.
Where's the kitten? Oh, wait. Oh, sorry.
All right. I didn't. There's nothing about that. Forget that. Forget I said that. But we also get this scene which is sort of intercut with this under the full moon. We have Pepe is at the bar and everybody's just talking shit about him, about this
Yeah.
wolf. And he's like, I swear I hit it. They're like, hey, of course you did. Hey, he's a bloody good hunter, right? And then somebody said, hey, maybe you need to get a new rifle. Must have been the rifle, right? You know. And he's like, hey, stupid thing. And he goes into the back of the tavern, which is where he and his wife live, because his wife runs the tavern, or at least must run it if they live there.
No, it's her place.
Yeah. And he's like, what am I going to do? I got to do something. And he notices this silver crucifix on the wall, and he's like, there's an idea. Because clearly he knows about werewolves.
Well, can we assume, even though it was poorly handled, that maybe that thought didn't enter his head until we had the other drunken guy saying it wasn't any ordinary wolf?
Oh, I guess it would have been nice if that was all one scene, though.
Right. And we maybe would have had a reaction shot of Pepe going, oh, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was a werewolf. Because yes. Then we see Pepe melting down his wife's crucifix to turn into...
Which I love. I love somebody crafting a silver bullet to kill a wolf. Because now I'm like, all right, yeah, let's go hunt a werewolf. Except I'm going this won't work because Oliver Reed's not even in the movie yet.
Yeah, and she comes in and goes, wait, what happened to my crucifix?
Yep, turned into a bullet.
Like, sorry, I had to do this. She goes, but that was blessed by the Archbishop. And he goes, even better.
Yeah, and he says, it's the only way.
Yeah.
And so he goes out.
He bullet years before it's ever going to... Well, that's not true. It will be used, but years before it'll do its actual job.
Right, because he's now poking around again with his rifle out under the full moon, and he's like, oh, there's that wolf! And he shoots it, and what is it?
It's the dog.
It's Eric Idle's dog.
He's a good dog, he is. Nothing wrong with my dog.
And
of course, the gag would be the camera would pan down, and the dog would literally be hanging from his arm with its teeth in it and blood pouring down. He's a good dog, he is.
He's a good dog.
He's a sweet dog.
I wouldn't hurt a fly.
Blood is coursing out of his arm.
It's spraying out. Oh, man, now I wish that movie existed even more. So he sees that he's killed the dog. He's like, oh, so it was just you the whole time then. Man, mystery solved.
And he's wasted a silver bullet on a dog.
Yeah.
Or has it been wasted?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll find out what happens to that silver bullet later.
Yeah, because now we time-lapse a bunch of years and enter Oliver Reed 47 minutes into the film.
Strapping early 20s.
This is prime Oliver Reed. He's looking good here.
He is. And he is a dutiful son. He is leaving home to go get his first job.
So in the, 15 to 20 years that have passed here, we're to presume he's never werewolfed out and harmed anybody?
He was just so loved, John.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. It is just like... And also, if you're Alfredo and Teresa and you know he's a werewolf, wouldn't you be like, hey, why don't you just live here with us?
Yeah,
we love you. Stay here. Be loved by us. He hasn't wolfed out in 20 years.
In the narration or something, he does go, I guess they had assumed that the battle had been won or something. It's like he grew up to be a fine and stable young man.
Yeah.
And so he goes out into the world.
Reed enters the picture, an image of stability.
Yeah. He's not swerving on his feet at all. He is standing straight. His eyes are clear. There is a scene
we
later.
We got him sober today. All right.
They do a Terrence Fisher does this clever little flashback or a callback because in the scene where Oliver Reed goes off to the vineyard where he's going to start working as just a manual laborer.
Yeah.
He's walking as a happy young man with the straw in his mouth, and he's just like, yeah, I'm off to start my life. And then later we'll see him on that exact same path after something terrible's happened, staggering and then falling off to the side of the road. And in that scene, all I could think was, oh boy, that was late in the day after
he came back.
Heavy lunch.
Yeah.
Because he does a very convincing job of staggering.
If anybody needs me, I'll be down at the tavern for lunch.
Jesus, I'm sure.
But yeah, hello, Oliver. And he walks in.
Quick, get the camera. He's still in costume. Great.
So
They do
he walks over to, I guess, another town where this winery is.
It can't be too far away because of what happens in the later in the movie. I'm like,
Well,
is it just
people are
down the
running
road?
back and forth between these towns like crazy at the end of this movie. But anyway, as soon as he enters this town, what happens? A carriage drives by and immediately splashes him with mud, and he's like, "Well, I never." And there's a douchebag rich guy, and he's like, "Ho ho 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 ho!
Got him good. Oh, oh, oh. I say,
Here's
did
an
you see how
extra
I got
$5
him?
for you, driver. Got him good."
That
and
was
this-
plenty of mud on his nice clothes.
This is Rico Gomez, is this rich guy played by David Conville. David
Very
Conville,
convincing
Rico
Very
Gomez. Yeah, a native of Spain. I see here. No, actually born in Kashmir, India.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Probably part of the empire because
Yeah.
he is as white as they come.
oh yeah,
I'm sure.
British as hell, man. Yeah. Anyway,
And
a working
his lady
character actor with a ton of credits.
His lady friend, who we find out later, is the daughter of the owner of the vineyard.
Christina.
So, yeah, Christina, what was the actress's name?
Her name is Catherine Feller.
Catherine Feller, and she's billed below Yvonne Romaine.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's kind of harsh because Christina Feller, she actually gets dialogue, and she's good.
She is good. Doesn't have.
No,
she's
she's-
a handful of things, but not a lot of credits.
Not a long career. I looked that up too.
Oh, yeah.
She's distinct looking, like she's very cute.
Yeah.
And I thought that was actually refreshing. They didn't go for a second, we got to get another Vava Vumi type in here. Instead, she is.
No, we had the big tits at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, you got to even these things out. So she is instead a very sweet, good-natured, and very cute.
I really
young
liked
lady.
her and legitimately felt bad for her. Once again, once Oliver Reed comes into this movie, I feel like this thing really picks up steam, and it really is like, okay, 47 minutes in, here's the movie. Here's what should be the bulk of the film, and it's instead less than half.
It really should have been this guy's movie with some flashbacks because Oliver Reed's a better actor, and also the adult years is where all the interesting stuff is going to happen.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is the biggest mistake made in this movie, and I think that is what cost this film its popularity. I think this would have been a more successful movie because you're really
or Werewolf.
Yeah, because number one, you're kind of like you really are duping your core audience by giving them so little Werewolf that it is like, wait a minute, I paid to see Curse of the Werewolf. And I'm sure it would be more infuriating had I paid to see this in the theater. But my experience watching this earlier today, where I'm going like, I'm sorry, what is going on? Where is this a werewolf movie? And it's just like it really requires a level of patience that I think is too much to ask of an audience. Especially this not being, if this was a 2.5 hour epic, then sure, spend your opening 47 minutes on this. But the fact that it's only a 93-minute movie is like, Jesus.
It shouldn't be a 2.5 hour werewolf movie, I think, at all. But
no. I know, I agree. But I'm just saying, like, should this be an epic, you can do that. But that opening, that's a 10-minute prologue.
Yeah.
That get that in, get all of that taken care of, and then we get to Oliver Reed. He can come in 15 minutes into this movie, but 47, that's a crime.
Agreed. Jeez, you're not gonna get a fight from me.
No. I think we agree on this movie's flaws, but I think from here on out, I dig this movie.
Yeah, because here in very short order we get that even though he is of sort of upper middle class upbringing, Leon is he's taking a laborer's job in a vineyard. He meets
I do like he walks into this town and there's a guy who's just like, "Hi, you look strong," and Oliver Reed's just like, "I am strong," and the guy's like,
we know that he went specifically to do this job. They did say that he was going to a place that had hired him. Okay. But he is meeting people for the first
way this is played, though, the guy seems to have just been like, "Hey, you want a job?"
But, yeah, he just goes, "Who are you?" And he says, "Well, I'm Leon, blah, 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 blah." And he goes, "Right, okay, are you strong?" He's like, "Yeah." And he's like,
"Okay,
come on
I'm
in."
20-something Oliver Reed.
What what I feel is probably the case, as would have happened back then, is I'm pretty sure that Alfredo wrote a letter to the vineyard saying, "Hey, would you hire on my son?" And then letter back saying, "Sure, send him along." So yeah, he's never met the guy before. So instead, he's like going, "Oh, you're that guy. Are you strong? Okay, great." But then the job he's given, where he goes down into the bottling part of whatever the vineyard, and he meets his buddy, whose name I can't.
His buddy's name is Jose, and I spent the whole movie just going, "This is the James Corden part."
Yeah, he's a likable, plumpish oaf. But he's a good friend and a nice guy. He's like, "Oh, great. Well," he goes, "I hope you've got a strong constitution because the job's tough." He goes, "All right, tell me what I have to do." He goes, "Well, see this bottle?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You fill the bottle and you put the label on it. Yeah, that's our job." Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, you kidder. There's nothing to it." So they get along famously. And at one point they're looking out the window from their little hidey hole, and the friend Jose is like, "Oh, you're wondering who those people are?"
I love his instant exposition here. "That's the owner's daughter. She's engaged to be married to Rico Gomez." Yeah. You know,
it's like Rico Gomez. He's an idiot. He's a total prat, and no one likes him.
He's very excited to marry her, and then Oliver goes, "Well, what is she excited to marry him?"
And he's like, "Would you be?" Yeah. So clearly, the daughter is not excited about this arranged marriage, and what's also apparent is she has noticed Leon.
Oh yeah. Well, who wouldn't notice Oliver?
Looking across the yard and into that window, and then she comes down to introduce herself. She's like, "Oh, I haven't met the new guy at the vineyard. Hello, I'm." So it becomes a very Cliff's Notes Romeo and Juliet, because we don't get a lot of time.
That's a big problem with this too. Is it's like all of a sudden, 47 minutes. Not only do we get Oliver Reed as we're introduced to a whole new group of characters that we have very limited time to set up, and they're supposed to be so important. By the way, Martin Matthews is the guy who plays Jose. A lot of BBC television on his resume here, but I just want to point out that he did do a 3-parter of Doctor Who in 1978, The Androids of Terra, with Tom Baker.
I may have actually seen that one.
Yeah. Well, there he is. He's in. Well, he's not. He's a 4-parter, but he's only in parts 2, 3, and 4. So anyway, pretty cool. Anyone who shared the screen with Tom Baker, I tip my hat to.
You should, and I think he's very good in this. I mean, I think
he's. I was surprised because he's the comic relief character in this, and he's not terrible.
No, you didn't hate him. He was fine.
He was because they didn't overdo it. He's just sort of lighthearted and jovial.
Yeah, exactly. And likes the ladies, likes having a good time. Yeah. He makes paper doll cutouts that he makes do hula dances with
and he doesn't call it poopsie.
If only. God damn it! Where's my callback?
Check it out, Leon. I call it poopsie.
I call her Poopsie. Maybe someday they'll make dolls of her. Can you imagine little dancing dolls?
And then both he and Oliver Reed stare into the camera lens for a couple seconds.
Huh? Maybe dolls that'll be sold in Cairo?
Very odd that they made this mummy reference and not a mummy movie.
One person in the audience goes, oh, I get that. Looks around, no one else.
Woo, Babe Jensen.
Yeah, Babe Jensen. Wells Ford, hello? So they're introducing all this, as you say, very briefly.
Yeah.
Especially because the romance is very quickly jumped into.
Yeah, I know. When they start making out in like the next scene, I was like, wait, what? There's a few moments in this last section where I'm like, did I miss a scene?
It does seem like we jump up in time, but essentially she's like, oh, I love you, but it's impossible. And he's like, why don't you run away with me? And she goes, I just can't, or maybe I will. I don't know. I'm so confused. I don't want to marry asshole Pratt guy,
Rico Gomez.
Suave. But he, so he goes, well, then don't. And we'll be happy together. We'll run away and start a new life. And she's like, great. And since this is a horror movie, we know that won't happen. But still, it's wonderful to dream about. In the meantime, our buddy wants to go out on the town.
It's Saturday night. They've got some money in their pocket. let's go have some fun. We do get a shirtless Oliver Reed here, looking great.
He actually was like,
he looks really good.
He's cut. I'm like, that's a 22-year-old guy who, even though he drinks everything and every day.
I've seen later Oliver Reed movies. The drinking will catch up with him.
Yeah, I was like, man, your metabolism right now must be burning through that alcohol and sugar. It's amazing how it's doing.
And look, older Oliver Reed's still good, even in all the schlock he ends up in. And a great final performance in Gladiator.
I'm very happy that 90s into 2000s, because he died in 99 or whatever.
Yeah, he died mid-filming of Gladiator.
Yeah, I'm just very glad that there was a little resurgence, because the 80s were hard. The movies he was, oh my God.
Yeah.
60s, 70s, he's gold. By 80s, no one wants to work with him, so he's in terrible shit, and he looks terrible, and he's puffy.
Yeah.
And then you get him like a star turn and a little part in Baron Munchausen as
I think, like a lot of things, people who grew up watching him remembered him, and then when they were making movies, they started putting him in stuff. So you have people like Gilliam
for a couple of weeks. He's like, yeah.
You have people like Gilliam or Ridley Scott going like, I love Oliver Reed.
And he is legitimately great in those last performances.
He absolutely is.
He owns it.
He's fantastic in that, even when he's a CG creation because he's dead. That's the first movie I can remember where they're like, he died, so we just made him in the computer.
And God bless them, they did the best they could.
Well, I mean, Scott is smart to limit how much you're staring at him when he's computer generated. I will say it is pulled off better than some, simply because Ridley Scott's a smart enough filmmaker to go, don't linger on any of that.
Let's move it along. Here at 22, he's looking good.
Oh, damn.
And yet his friend Jose has convinced him, all right, why not? Yeah. But here's the thing. This is Saturday night. Sunday, and literally Jose says, you got nothing to do. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not even going to be working, and tomorrow's Sunday. Yeah. We know as the audience that he and his lady have agreed already to run away on Sunday. So, literally the next day, his new life will begin. Too bad he goes out on.
He's got to go do Carl Pro karaoke with James Corden.
Exactly. On the night of the full moon. Mm-hmm. So he's in the Raucous Tavern.
Oh yeah,
with Jose.
And Jose is boogieing, man.
He is there. He's got a lady lined up, but there's plenty other ladies that he's sort of howling at.
And he's got a lady lined up for Leon.
Yeah, he's got a lady lined up for Leon Jose's
the guy you want to go out with. This guy seems awesome.
He's kind of he's hanging back. He's not being morose, but he's like, yeah, okay, this is all right.
He's certainly not pleasant, dancing it up, with the others.
And other ladies in the club are looking at Leon. Apparently, this guy, wherever he goes, the ladies are going, and you are?
Because he's 20-something Oliver Reed.
Yeah, but he's getting a little worse as the night progresses.
He's getting pretty sweaty.
And he's doing a glare, like, oh, he looks like he's about to throw up. And actually, the lady he's with is like, you don't look so good. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go out and get some air.
And no makeup required, by the way. This was just an evening shoot with Oliver Reed. This is what he happened to look like.
He's sweating through his clothes. Yeah, he's very convincingly.
The woman next to him originally was like, I'm sorry, he just smells like whiskey. It's overwhelming. I think I'm getting drunk just from smelling.
No, I'm literally 18 feet away from him. We don't have a kissing scene. I'm saying he smells like whiskey. It's coming out of his pores. You could drink his right now and get drunk.
I swear he wrung out one of his shirts into a glass and did it like a shot. All right, let's go. Drinking
like this since Lon Chaney.
Oh yeah.
Old guy on the set who had worked at Universal in the 40s was like going, I've seen this before. You'll want to give him some room. I'd get him his own trailer.
Yeah.
And Broderick Crawford's phone number.
Broderick Crawford was doing a service to Universal by beating the booze out of Lon Chaney. Sobering him up with punches to the face.
We're gonna send Broderick Crawford on a jet over to England. There, he's gonna be there in a couple of days.
Where
you set him up with all.
Roger Crawford, where do you
man.
need me?
This is a phrase that Oliver should say to Broderick Crawford that will enrage him. This is like a code word.
That's on, pretty boy.
Say about my mother.
Roger Crawford is slowly turning into Richard Nixon.
Roger Crawford, by this point in the early 60s, probably in the 60s himself. I love the idea of him coming over to England to beat on this 22-year-old who's playing another werewolf. Another drunk.
Also, this
this is kind
like
of the only
jacked up,
these days.
perfect physical specimen Oliver Reed at this point. Bring it on!
Here we go again. Another drunk werewolf. I gotta beat some sense into.
I've been down this road before, Sonny.
You'll be a mummy before you know it. Then you'll be Dracula. That won't work.
Ooh,
Oh my god.
Oliver Reed would be an okay Dracula. I think I could see it. He's not
Well,
ideal,
here's the
but he
thing.
would certainly be better than Lon Chaney.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The thing I'll say is that if nothing else, Oliver Reed is magnetic.
Yes,
Oliver Reed
yes.
smolders without trying, and a lot of it is just due to the man's physical makeup.
Yeah.
The hood eyes, that's just genetics, but at the same time, he knew how to play that.
Yes.
So he would be not ideal, but certainly better. Yes, certainly better than Lon Chaney Jr.
He's compelling. Your eye is drawn to him on screen, and that's why it's a bummer it takes so long to get to him in this movie, and why this movie kicks into gear once he's there, because you're like, ooh, this guy's interesting. Like Oliver Reed, that's why I love about him. Any of the movies that I saw him in when he was, especially when he was younger, you're just like, who is this guy? I want to see this guy in a movie. Like I'm what's he up to? You know, he's just compelling.
He's a breakout in Oliver, and he's great in Tommy, and these are not the biggest parts in those movies, but you can't forget him as Bill Sykes in Oliver.
Right.
It's a kid musical, and yet he is genuinely threatening and
great.
unforgettable.
He's
and
great in it. There's a movie I love
and
with him that doesn't get a lot of play, but it's a movie called Sitting Target. That's a British gangster movie from the either late 60s, early 70s. And he's like it's a classic gangster story setup. He gets out of prison and he's going to go kill all the people who put him in there. So it's just unhinged Oliver Reed loose on the streets of England with a rifle going like I got to kill these fuckers, you know.
It's his version of Point Blank.
Yeah,
He's kind
basically,
of,
yeah. And so, but he's way crazier than Lee Marvin, obviously. Like he's just like, I'm gonna get him.
Lee Marvin's thing wasn't about crazy; it was about that cold, stony.
Just him walking in Point Blank is so threatening. Yeah. He's just like, he will not be stopped.
Now I want to watch Point Blank.
I watched it a couple months ago, and that movie is awesome. It's just
it is so good. I haven't seen it in years.
It's a great movie. I think it's on HBO Max. So,
well, I might check it out. All right, so Leon leaves the tavern, or he goes into the balcony, and the girl outside, that was given,
based on the girl's suggestion, the girl he was talking to was like, "You should go outside," and he's like, "Yeah,
right." But she doesn't follow him. No, it was the other girl that was giving him the eye.
Yeah,
she comes out to find him. Like, hey, what are you?
Does this woman even have a name? I just kept calling her woman in my notes because
I was interested enough by her look and also her voice, which surprised me. It was much deeper than I expected, because it turns out she's not much older, but she's probably a woman in her 30s.
Is this the character Isabel?
She is Vera, and Vera. The actress is Sheila Brennan.
Okay.
So yeah, she actually was almost exactly 30 when she made this movie, because she does get a scene. Like, she actually has dialogue.
She's good.
I mean, she gets more dialogue than Yvonne Romaine.
Yeah, she should have been a bub title.
So it's just kind of I'm not going to say floozy, but she is certainly a lady who's out for a good time herself and is attracted to him. And she's like, you need to lay down somewhere. You could come up to my room. And he's like, yeah, okay. Even though he knows he's going to run off with the love of his life tomorrow, he still follows this lady to her room.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly, it's her coming on to him, and then he's kind of resisting, and then he's like, well, fuck that, and he gets all into it, but he's sweating, and the change is upon him.
She's covered in perspiring scotch now.
She herself is drunk by the end of the scene.
We do another take of that.
Osmosis. And he gets the hairy claw.
Yeah, so once again, why are they hiding the werewolf at this point? I don't understand. Because she does get he scratches her while they're making out, and she's like, "Look, if that's what you want, go somewhere else."
She gets up off the bed and she goes, "Whoa, I'm not that type. You just scratched me."
And then she turns around, and this is really, I really like this. Once again, I mean, Terrence Fisher knows what he's doing at this point. So she turns around and the bed's empty, and she's like, "Huh? Where did he?" And like you can see the thought of like, "Where did he?" And then the hand grabs her, the wolf hand, and I was like,
"Now, one thing I noticed as far as makeup goes, the only thing I don't like about this design, which we'll see, obviously not in full till later.
No, I have the time code down written when we see it.
Inconsistency about the hair color. Now,
yes.
I am of the opinion that if you turn into a werewolf, the wolf hair should mimic your own natural hair color.
I think that's fair.
And here, very rarely do they do that in werewolf movies. They always end up either brown or they end up like salt and pepper, like gray Timberwolves would be. But I think it should actually be your hair color.
Sure.
Because why would your hair suddenly shift color when you're turning into a wolf version of yourself? So in this scene, his hand, which is all we see, is black fur. Like his hair is black. But when we see the full werewolf later in the movie, it's light gray.
Yeah, I did take notice of this too. It is weird.
And that's the only thing I didn't like. I was like, why shift? And then I realized the point. I realized why. And it was sheerly for photography. Because the fact that obviously it's a night scene and it's well shot when we finally see the werewolf running around. If it was black hair, you would not see him. He would just blend into the shadows, which is kind of cool. But they really do want you to be able to see him leaping rooftop to rooftop and doing all this other stuff. So they had to go, all right, we just have to lighten the hair color or you won't be able to see him there.
Right.
So I think that's the reason. And it bugged me. I was like, dude, that should be a black-haired werewolf.
It was definitely something. Well, it is something I noticed for sure. Like here I established black fur and then later it is that silvery kind of fur. And I did go, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. All right. So we don't see
the werewolf. We cut back to the club or bar itself, and this is when Jose is like, "Hey, where did Leon go?" And then it cuts back to the room, and we see blood dripping on this broken mirror, and it pans up to the woman dead with a big gash in her neck.
This was well done makeup.
Well, we always talk about how come we don't see werewolves tear out throats, and this isn't a full tear out in a throat, but it's definitely like he chomped down on her jugular.
We see that there's some tearing, and we also see claw marks on the top of her shoulder and chest, and you're like, if nothing else, for 1961, balls to you, because it is
absolutely
pretty damn awesome. The blood is bright.
It's hammer blood.
Okay. But still, I was impressed they went that far. I was like, oh, thank God it's not one of those pristine werewolf victims lying. They're like, oh, she's been torn apart, and they look absolutely fine. I'm like,
look, you know,
flesh should be ripped. Okay?
You know my predilections in films. So you know I sat up and paid attention once the scene started. Like, hey now, blood pooling.
Blood pooling. It'll be your Deadpool podcast. I can't wait to listen. So that's
almost so good of a title that I should start a Deadpool podcast.
There you go. Blood pooling.
Yeah.
Or Deadpool.
I wish I was a bigger Deadpool fan to host that podcast. I mean, I don't hate him, but I'm like a very medium-sized Deadpool fan.
I'm even less than that. I don't hate the character, and I've loved the movies. I've loved them.
But
as a character in comics, a little goes a long way.
Yes. I have enjoyed individual runs of the character. He's fun for a little bit. I like when they pair him with somebody else.
It's the same thing as the Harley Quinn thing. I hate it when B and C-list characters get so popular that they're oversaturated and they're everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, stop it. I'm looking at you, Wolverine and Punisher and Harley Quinn.
Now you're hitting me where I live. Wolverine and Punisher.
Those characters are great. They're great and Wolverine, of course, is iconic, but he belongs on the X-Men and in a solo book, not in every team and every book.
I do agree with you.
Guest starring in every issue.
I do agree with you. They are overexposed. There's no question about that. But
Punisher, C-list character that was great when he showed up in guest appearances in Daredevil and Spider-Man. Perfect usage because he's used as a dark mirror reflection of other vigilantes. But when he in the 90s had 4 ongoing titles at the same time, holy mackerel! When he guest appeared in everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, this isn't a comics podcast.
It
I'm
isn't.
sorry.
But I think also me being a kid in the 90s, I may have glommed on to old Frank Castle a little bit more.
I know.
Because I was reading all of those titles.
I know you were.
And also, I love a vigilante.
And I know that you call your diary the War Journal.
I do.
The John Campbell War Journal.
Yeah. What am I waging a war against? I haven't found out yet.
Anyway, so our buddy Jose has been concerned about where his buddy.
So he goes outside. He's a bit tipsy. Been hanging out with Oliver Reed too much. He's stumbling around going, Leon, hey, where'd you go, man? Like, where are you out here? And this, all of a sudden, he's seized upon by the hands of a wolf.
This made me sad, but it also, that's effective, is that the werewolf will kill those close to him.
No throat tearing here, though. Strangles him, hucks him aside.
Yeah, it's a good huck, though.
Yeah.
It's a...
Oh, you see this guy fly and slam into this wall and back down onto the ground. Looks good.
Yeah, it looks good.
And it's dark enough that we're not seeing mats and stuff. You know, it's not. There's no crash pad visible here. It's at night. You know, I'm sure that wall is foam or something, but it looks real enough when he hits it.
And this is like the time jump to the next day or morning, and we're seeing Leon stagger home, and this is where he does the whole like.
Well, actually, we're not seeing that. We cut back to the town that Leon is from, and we have older drunk farmer yelling at Pepe about, "I love that dog, and you killed him."
Here's the thing. Yeah, this is painful expositionary screenwriting because we've done this time jump. We haven't seen this farmer. This has been now 10, 15 years.
This cut really confused me when all of a sudden we were in another town with Leon out on the town with Jose, and then all of a sudden we cut back to his hometown and the farmer and Pepe. I'm like, whoa.
And the farmer is this, for some reason, he's gotten drunk with Pepe and is whining about the dog that was shot probably 10 to 15 years ago.
Well, because Pepe even says, you never stop mentioning that dog.
And he goes, yeah, I shot him, and then no other goats were killed, so I did my job. And he goes, and I keep that silver bullet right here on a chain around my neck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, thanks, movie. Thanks.
It's right.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, and he points it right into the camera now.
Ever needs a silver bullet, they'd know where to find one because I have it on a necklace around my neck.
Yeah. Be sure to tell your friends about my silver bullet I keep with me at all times.
If you're with Alfredo or the priest, make sure they know about the silver bullet. Okay.
Have you read my pamphlet about the silver bullet? Did everybody get a copy? There's a lot of...
Did you get the handout, the leaflet in the theater?
Yeah. Remember the silver bullet, it says. There's a lot of clumsy, forced exposition in this movie. I don't know
why only one crucifix could have made one silver bullet when if Alfredo's like, I've got to kill my own son, he doesn't have any silver he can melt down?
It doesn't have to be a blessed crucifix. That was just a bonus.
No, and it doesn't even have to be the one that Pepe made. Literally, the priest could have brought him another blessed crucifix.
That was the only silver in a town.
So unnecessary, but we get that. That's right. I forgot about that whole scene.
Yeah. And then the farmer is now walking home drunk, and he hears a wolf howl, and he's like, what? And then he sees a shadow. We see the shadow of the wolf moving on a roof. And then we see from a very long distance, so you can't make out what the wolf looks like, the wolf leap and pounce onto the farmer, and he's like, no, and presumably he's ripped to shreds.
He got another murder in. That's right. So
he's got 3 for the night.
And he actually does do that tally later. He goes, I killed 3 people last night. He does say that.
Yeah. Because then this also still confused me. So now, like, the wolf then ran back to his hometown to get in another murder, and then Alfredo walks in to Leon's bedroom, and he's just there with his shirt off, sweating. And I thought, well, he doesn't go. He goes, Leon, what's wrong with you? He doesn't go, what's Leon doing here? It really, this whole thing threw me about the town. I wish he'd been in this all been the same town or something.
The towns have to be very close. They just have to be
Yeah.
because Leon walked to the vineyard, and then he's obviously in one night gotten home before the sun rose and got inside, and so he ran home.
But
in
yet
some
it takes
psychological state.
Christina in a carriage a little while to get there.
I can't remember
when she
how
comes
long
to get him in the jail. They do a whole thing about how long it takes to get the father and the priest to get there well before Christina does, even though she's coming by carriage. This is where I started to get confused about how far apart these towns were.
Yes, it'd be handy if there had been some road signs.
Yeah. Also, be sure to consult your map the usher gave you. They're handing out pamphlets about silver bullets and maps of the town.
It's shocking, but we also handed out those flashlights.
Yeah. I love the
reference to the map you were handed.
I do love the idea of the movie stopping at places going, all right, everybody, check your map. We'll give you a second. All right, back to the movie.
I can't remember. I think it was Werewolf in the Girls' Dormitory, another really grade Z horror film where they had the werewolf alarm right before the end of the movie, because the whole thing was they teased out the mystery of who the werewolf was in that movie. So it had a gimmick where the movie would stop at that alarm so that you could all speculate on who the werewolf was, and then the movie starts back up.
Like you're gonna turn and go, well, who do you think it is? I thought it was Jim. He seemed really wolfy in that one scene.
Oh man, that's like a sub William Castle kind of gimmick. But
I don't love it really, but I do love in schlock those kind of gimmicks. You know, that's fun to me. I love William Castle for that reason, stuff like that.
Me too. It's fun stuff. But I'm sorry that again we've gone off topic. But Leon has made it back home, and Alfredo knows.
And then once again, he's like, I don't understand what. And then the bars of the window are torn apart.
Yeah.
But he did that coming in then.
Yeah, the bars are bent in.
Yeah.
So he tore the bars in to get into his own house.
Yeah. Okay, but that's interesting that this is where he comes back to.
It's home to him.
Yeah.
It's home.
Yeah, I guess.
He felt loved there.
And then so he's sweaty and he's like, I don't remember where I was or what I was doing. And then he looks at his hands and they're covered in blood.
Yeah.
And he's like, whose blood is this?
I mean, sure, that's very effective, but it would have been much more effective if like, look, if your hands are covered in blood, if you've literally gouged people, it wouldn't just be your palms.
Yeah. No, because
when he
has his hands down, you don't notice it. It's only when he turns them over that, what?
They do make the blood dark as if it maybe has dried over. But
they do.
What would make more sense is, well, wouldn't his bed sheets, as he tossed and turned, wouldn't there be blood all over? Wouldn't he?
It'd be blood all over. There'd be blood on his mouth and it'd be blood everywhere. He'd be a bloody mess.
Does look down on the ground. We don't see it because your clothes, so we can assume that he tore off ripped bloody clothes as well.
Yeah.
Why didn't they show us the torn bloody clothes?
Yeah.
And again, I raised my hand. No one answered my question. I was very infuriated.
And I don't understand why they didn't get that bottle of vodka out of the shot from what had really been going on. That's really what threw me. I'm like, oh my god, he's just on a bender.
You heard it clink when Alfredo's foot hit it.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, all of this at the end of the movie, we reveal he's just been drunk the whole time. There was no werewolf.
I can't believe we fell for the old werewolf bed, and it was just this alcoholic who blacks out and kills people.
So from here on out, Oliver Reed is at an 11 for the rest of this movie.
Yeah,
he is, and I love it. He's so crazed and out of control throughout the rest of this.
Desperate and panicky,
and never not coated in sweat.
Yeah, and he knows what's up, and he's basically saying, once he knows his condition, he wants the police to come get him.
Well, first we have the scene here where we cut to, they've told him that he's a werewolf. We cut in, and he does not react well.
No.
He's really, why didn't you didn't tell me all this time?
Oh, right. Yes, he does make a break back to the vineyard because he has to go see.
Yeah, because the priest says, hey, look, I could probably arrange it to send you to a monastery somewhere,
Oh
and
yes,
everything
the
will be
mom.
peaceful and fine. But in the meantime, while I'm setting that up, you are gonna have to be shackled and watched all the time. And this was when he's
All
like,
the time.
like you would do with a wild animal, and he flips a table and runs out of the house.
Yes. Yeah, and it is acting. Acting. It's
Yeah.
very good.
Oh yeah,
And
this is capital A acting right here.
I get the you'll have to be shackled and watched all day and night. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, no, during the day and when it's not full moon, he's gonna be just
Well,
fine.
that's
Can
that's
we call it the
that's
shackling? All right.
unclear. So it's just a full moon, right? Because it seems like he's turned into a werewolf a lot.
That well, we've only seen him turn to a werewolf during a full moon, but I
Yeah,
guess he does say he has nightmares every night. So
that's what I
maybe
mean.
the
Like it's yeah. Are we just using the full moon in general as imagery?
they do at one point say, I think maybe it's a priest again, that the full moon is during the full moon or when the powers of darkness are at their strongest, which is why the demon inside him is able to break free. He's at his weakest morally, religiously,
Yeah.
spiritually
Well,
during the full moon.
then
Okay.
I'm back to Oz on Buffy, and why not then just shackle him up 3 nights a month, and we're good. We're all good.
Yeah, better. And Jack Russell, Werewolf by Night. I just got through reading one of those classic collections of those, and they
Which
were doing
they've
that.
just relaunched. I haven't read it, but I have the first issue on my iPad of the new Werewolf by Night.
As long as he is still a werewolf by night, I'm down for it.
I
If
believe
he
so.
ends up being a werewolf by proxy or werewolf by mid afternoon,
Yeah.
I'm out.
He's a werewolf by water. It's only when he gets near water that he turns into a werewolf. Weird.
How close are we to the ocean?
Oh,
Oh, no,
dear
Jack.
God.
But anyway, yes, it seems a bit extreme. He does run. This is where we get the scene of him running back to the vineyard
Yeah.
where he staggers, like, I
Yeah.
can't handle the terribleness of my life.
Documentary
And he-
footage of Oliver Reed coming home.
Staggering, falling in the dirt, and then pounding the dirt, like,
Yeah.
damn you, dirt. It's
No,
great.
I love this because Oliver Reed's just like, I'm going, man. I'm going for it at full blast. Like,
You say act?
yeah.
Why didn't you start rolling the camera? Because
Yeah.
I'm always ready.
Yeah. It's just like
And he does deliver.
It's like, this is my shot, and I'm gonna take every second of this.
Gets back to the vineyard, and the local cops are there. And
I love these local cops with their fancy hats.
cagey. Yeah, they're very, very fancy, but they're cagey. They're like, "Are you Leon? Blah blah blah." Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know Jose? Blah blah. Absolutely. Were you with him last night at the? He's like, "Yes." Why? Did something happen? They're like, "We're just asking questions.
Routine questions. We'll be
I know,
in
they-
touch.
Be in touch. Don't go anywhere."
Here's our card. Yeah,
Oh.
don't skip town.
Yeah. So they are weirdly cagey instead of like going, "We'd like to talk to you about his murder."
No, I
they
like
don't
these-
say that.
But I want to watch the Law and Order procedural show about these guys.
Yeah.
That would be great. that would be so good. I want historical Law and Order. That would rock.
Procedural from 1780 is what
Yeah.
everyone's waiting.
I would watch the hell out of it.
Clearly, this was the work of a witch.
She's a witch. Get her. Well, another witch taken care of, boys. Yeah.
Any woman with a wart is then burned at the stake.
Yep.
Perfect. Dun dun dun. So they clang clang. They let him go. He goes in. He's really discombobulated. He wants to see Christina.
Yeah.
Is that her name?
Yeah, just Christina. Yeah.
And so he's equally vague.
Yeah.
He basically is like, "Love me," and she's like, "Absolutely."
Actually, before this, we get Don Fernando, who owns the winery, going like, "Going out to a place like that, you should have known there'd be trouble."
He hasn't been told apparently that there were murders. He's just being judgy about the fact that Leon went out and got drunk.
Right.
That's basically, he doesn't know there have been murders. I don't know why
Yeah.
the cops can go, "One of your workers was slain last night,
Nope.
and we'd like to talk to his buddy."
No.
So
It was-
anyway, he's
Anyway,
like,
there was a
"Christina,
spate of killings last night. Whatever.
will you run away with me?" She's like, "Absolutely. Can we go tonight?" Okay, then.
Yeah, we got to go right now. I mean, right now. Like, yeah.
But instead, they he's exhausted or whatever and passes out.
He's just staring at this full moon like, oh, God.
And then they cut to the next morning. They didn't leave because apparently he passed out, and she stayed with him all night.
Yeah.
With his head in her lap. It's very romantic.
Because she
and then
loves
he wakes
him,
up,
and he was fine.
Yeah, he wakes up going, oh my God, were you here all night? She's like, duh.
Yeah.
And then he goes, did anything happen to me? And she goes, well, you snored a little.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I mean, did I change? And she's like, no, weirdo.
Yeah. She still wants to marry this guy after this behavior too.
I know, and I these movies are always like this. You're like, okay, yes, she might think you're crazy, but wouldn't you just say, look, I just found out I'm a full-on werewolf and I've killed people.
Yeah.
The fact that I didn't last night means you love me, and your love keeps the darkness at bay, so we have to be together forever, and you're my cure. He doesn't say any of that. He's like going, wow, that's amazing. Great. We're definitely meant to be together. Let's leave. We're going to leave as soon as we can.
I want to cut to 30 years later when their marriage has hit the skids and she's like, I don't even know if I love you anymore. And he's just like, and he turns into a wolf. Like once there's even a waiver and he's like, that's it. I'm eating people now.
He said this on a night of a waxing.
Why did you say it now, Christina? Oh!
Waxing moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I killed the neighbors, and it's on you, honey.
Okay. I'd rather them die than I live a lie. And she starts rhyming.
Great, honey. I ate the cat. You happy now? I ate the damn cat.
Well, actually, I hated it. It used to piss in my shoes. So that is a terrible sequel to this movie. But so
that's John Cassavetes' Curse of the Werewolf.
This is the plan anyway. They will go away and be happy forever. But that's not what happens.
Knock, knock, knock. The cops are at the door.
They're maybe now willing to talk about someone having died.
They're like, are these your clothes? He's like, yes. And they're like, that's it. You're under arrest for murder.
I know. Full on. He doesn't go, no. Never seen those before.
Yeah. How would they have played that?
Once this comes out, Leon I respect him. He is very honest.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's out, he's like, I did kill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a werewolf, and I've killed like 3 people. So I either need to be with Christina forever and ever, happy, or you need to lock me up or burn me. You need to basically kill me. I'm a werewolf.
They put him in a cell here, and he's demanding, you have to send for my father. This is where he's calling him father.
And the priest.
Yeah, father and although I do like, once again, it's just like, get my daddy to come down here and talk to someone. He's a very important man. He's a Don.
You're not a Don.
Yeah. This cop who's watching the jail isn't doing anything about it. And finally, the other guy's cellmate goes, there's only one way he'll listen to you. And then Leon's like, oh, whoa. I have money. And the guy's like, money, you say?
What?
Yeah, and so he gives him a little pouch of coins to go send someone to fetch his father and the priest. They'll know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Christina is returned with her bags all packed and enters the winery going like, Leon, we're going to go start our life together. And at this moment, her father, Fernando, and her fiance, Gomez, are like, what are you doing with those bags? You were going to run away with him, weren't you? And she
basically goes, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, have you seen this guy? And have you seen the hottie Oliver Reed?
And I'm pretty sure I can convince him to stop drinking.
Yeah. I just think I can change him. I think I can fix him.
Poor delusional.
Oh, honey.
You live in innocence. God bless you.
And so she says, well, look. And then Fernando's like, well, guess what? He's not here. He's in jail.
Yeah. Bum.
And she's like, what'd he do? He's like, I don't care. Something. And it's jail. I do like that. He doesn't know it's murder. He's just like, I'm just happy he's in prison.
First I heard about him going to a club and drinking.
Yeah.
Then it's jail. Where next? Ultra jail.
Supermax.
Supermax jail.
What's next? Arkham Asylum. criminally insane.
Yeah, he's been awful and judgy since day one, and is still upset she didn't marry the Pratt. I was hoping the Pratt would be killed by the werewolf. That does not happen. I'm sorry. Spoiler alert. Werewolf does not kill the Pratt.
No. And then she says, Gomez, can you have your carriage take me to the jail? He's like, I'm not going to do that. And she just goes, all right, well, then I'll just steal it. She runs outside. Yep. She locks these guys in and tells the driver, oh, yeah, Gomez said you have to take me to the jail. And the guy's like, all right. And so off they go. And this is where I'm talking about how long between this versus sending someone to go get the father and the priest. And they get there well before her.
I got the impression that it seemed like those towns had to be very
But
close
also,
together.
what jail is he in where? Because she's in the town where the winery and the bar is, yet it takes her a long time by carriage to get to the jail. But wouldn't that jail be...
Well, I'm assuming that in this day and age, more than likely there is a county lockup, a centralized multiple that handles...
So a third place that is aside from the two towns.
Yes.
Okay, and maybe that jail is slightly closer to the first town, which is why the father and the priest can get there before Christina.
Yes.
Okay. All right. You know what? All solved now. We just had to draw a little map, figure this out.
Yeah. I'm surprised at all the detail you put in there too.
Yeah, we'll have to post this online, our little map.
Do that. I like that you got the foothills there all indicated. That's nice.
I've also really expanded the world out and built a few more towns off to the side. And
I thought you including Mordor was really that threw me. I was like, I didn't think we were.
If you focus hard in the background, it's there, and we're actually fairly close to the Shire, believe it or not.
Well, the Shire was ruling. Wait, we're in Spain. What am I talking about? Sorry, I'm
It's so hard to tell with the accents.
Yeah.
So now the
I say, Don Caballero. Peons are right.
Hola, senor. Muchos gracias.
Don Diego de la Vega. I would like to speak to you about this terrible El Zaro person.
You know what? Some of the Zorro movies are very much like. You got Basil Rathbone running around the Tyrone Power one. You're like, doesn't get more British than Basil Rathbone.
I think maybe Antonio Banderas may have been the first actual person of any kind of Spanish descent to play Zorro.
I actually believe that's true, legitimately. Like Duncan Regehr, no. Guy Williams, no.
Italian gentleman, no.
Yeah, Alain Delon. Yeah, Alain Delon. No. Yeah, no. Douglas Fairbanks. No.
Not a single Spanish person played Zorro until. Well, that's not true. I mean, I'm sure there were actually probably Spain-centric or Mexico-centric Zorro films that I don't know about
that haven't really reached mainstream audiences. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. But at least in a major studio thing, he's the first. Man, that's depressing.
I'm sorry to brought you down.
Yeah. And now it will only be played by somebody of that descent, or else Twitter's going to hear about it.
Yeah.
And that's fine for Zorro. I think I think it should be a Spanish guy.
But your entire cast would have to be, because if even one of those actors is suddenly like, yes, I'm American playing Spanish, they'd be like, oh.
Anthony Hopkins is going to be in some trouble.
American. I'm Caucasian playing Spanish.
Anthony Hopkins not going to cut it there anymore. And he was so good.
He was good.
Yeah. Anyway. So, yeah, she's on her way with the carriage. Meanwhile, Alfredo and the priest, who is never given a name for being a big character in this movie, he's only priest.
He is only
You'd
priest.
You'd think he'd be like Father somebody.
I think he's listed specifically as priest / exposition giver, I think is the full character name.
He is just the guy who's like, excuse me, these are the rules of werewolfery. Yeah. And
or as we call it, lycanthropism.
It's the worst case of lycanthropism I've ever seen.
Werewolfery and lycanthropism, it's rampant.
Well, werewolfism leads to lycanthropism. That's the thing. It's like the worst, It's.
I see you've learned at the feet of the priest.
Yes, I have. Yes, he trained me. The priest is my mentor. Thanks, the priest. So So they come to the jail, and he's like, look, yeah, I turned into a werewolf. I've killed 3 people. It's gonna happen again. You have to go tell the mayor that, look, they've got to execute me right now. And you know the only way to execute me. And I assume they were going to say, with Silver, and instead they're like, no, of course, burn you. And he goes, hey, burn me alive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? We couldn't go get that silver bullet and do it that way? That seems a lot easier than burning this man alive.
Here's the thing. I'm not sure that Pepe did a good enough job of announcing just to the world exactly where that.
He did play that very close to the vest. He did kind of keep that quiet.
Really close to the vest because it's on a chain around his neck under his shirt.
Yeah, and he really should have told somebody about it.
He really should have, perhaps at a bar or a local public place.
Let it be known, Pepe. Come on, don't keep that mouth shut.
Well, luckily they do figure it out.
Yeah. Well, so they go to the mayor, who's like, "What? Your son's a murderer? He's murdering people?" It's like, the priest is going, well, look, once again, I could get him out of town to this monastery where he'd never bother anybody again. And the mayor's like, well, I'll be the judge of this werewolf. Let me see him. And so they all trudge down to the prison together. And
it's weird. It's like, I'm going to go get the proof, which essentially is, I'm going to go ask him.
Yeah, well, he goes down there and he goes, so you're a werewolf, eh?
I am.
Yeah, and he goes, all right. Let me see your hands. Mm-hmm. Now let me see your teeth. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And he's not being convinced. And then, luckily, Christina...
He goes, I'm going to need more witnesses.
I'm going to need more witnesses. Christina shows up, and he goes, who are you? And she goes, well, I'm his intended. We're going to run away together. I'm the love of his life. And he goes, uh-huh. And has he told you anything about a weird condition he has? Or he goes, no.
And then he's like, bullshit. He's not going anywhere. He's not a fucking werewolf.
And then to the mayor goes, well, clearly everyone else has been proven wrong by her going, no, he never said he was a werewolf to me.
He didn't even tell his own girlfriend.
Yeah, it's like cut to the courtroom scene. It's like, oh, so you say everyone knows he's a werewolf?
Well.
I put it to you, love of his life. Did he ever tell you he was a werewolf?
Did he ever mention anything about turning into a wolf and eating the flesh of other men? I don't recall anything like that. I rest my case.
Rest my case.
Anyway, I have to be getting home to Georgia.
Again, apologies to Matt Gorley. We're not even close to your amazing Southern.
Oh my God,
lawyer.
His Southern lawyer is the greatest. Look at that little face.
Oh, so he puts on a hockey mask. He may take out his aggressions on some teenagers now and then, but look at that little face. Don't you love this little boy?
My little boy.
Look at that. I just want to wrap him up in a blanket, take him home.
My sweet little boy. It's the best. Anyway, obviously, yeah. If you can't get enough monster talk, you can go listen to With Gorley and Rust as well.
We actually at this point should shout out, as we're going to bring them up almost every podcast. The Gorley and Rust podcast, where they go through all the great slasher films, and also, of course, James Bonding, which is Matt Myra and Matt Gorley doing all the Bond films.
Yeah,
we are obviously big fans of those guys. We listen to it, both of those, plenty. So it's almost second nature for us as we're talking about these films walking hand in hand. We're going to end up referencing those guys who are much funnier and successful and rich. So listen to them instead of us.
Oh, well, I don't know about instead. How about in addition to?
That's that's what I meant. Yeah. Oh, bad. Bad.
Brendan, I know you're fairly new to podcasting, but good Lord.
Don't ever listen to us.
Turn this show off.
Oh, why did I do that again?
Right now, delete us from your subscriptions.
Wait, you can subscribe to this?
Uh-oh.
John, you know what you're doing. That's all I'm saying. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
You've got a business model.
Absolutely. Go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and like and subscribe us. Rate us 5 stars on whatever podcatching software you use.
Very nice. Leave comments that are favorable to me and my various problems.
Yeah, Brendan. Hey, Brendan needs this, you guys. He really needs those nice comments.
More than me, okay? That's all I'm saying.
I do enough of these podcasts, but Brendan really is riding on this. Okay. So, yeah, and so the mayor's just like, no, leave him in that fucking cell. Anyway, mayor out. And he leaves, and we never see him again.
Oh, no, he is in the crowd.
Is he in the crowd? He probably isn't. I just didn't.
He gets to see the proof that he was wrong,
Like,
which is important.
Oh, I may have made a bad call.
Turns out he is a werewolf. Okay.
Oh, we
That's
could have avoided all this.
Me.
Damn it. Anyway, so this is when Leon says, "Hey, Father, you know how Pepe's always talking about that silver bullet he's got? Go get it.
No, I've never.
Go
Really?
get
A
it
silver-
and use it on me."
Yeah. He basically says, the only answer is to take me out, and it's going to be up to you to do it.
And so then it cuts to Christina's in the church we're now cutting in just after she's been told that Leon is a werewolf by the priest, and she's like, I don't believe it. That's impossible. It's not true. It's impossible. Mark Hamill shows up for that line.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, she doesn't believe it. Priest is just like, well, I don't really care. It's the truth, so whatever. And then it cuts to it cuts back to the jail cell, and Oliver Reed's getting all sweaty, and we see it's dusk outside, and I like the cellmate's just like, hi, it's getting dark out there.
It's this. I mean, I don't know the drunk, and it's the same drunk from earlier.
Yeah.
So in other words, his whole point in this movie is to say expositional things as a drunk person. But this thing cracked me up where he's like going, it's a nice night out there. Look at that beautiful full moon.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Look at that
hope there are no
moon
in here.
I think he does say, like, soon enough it'll be as light as day because of the full moon. Did you? Hey! Did you hear me? It's a full moon.
He doesn't really have time to say it a second time because by the time he turns around, there's a werewolf in there with him.
Well, yeah, we do get this transformation shot of his hands as he's looking at his hands, which is
it's not a good shot.
No, it's a little too slow between the dissolves. It's like, yes, wolf hands.
Because they were doing the dissolves, it's also not his hands. These are clearly model hands.
Yeah.
Like, so that way they won't be moving or twitching when they're doing the
look like that.
They look like model hands that are slowly having hair glued on them, and you're like, yeah, okay, guys.
At one point, you see a makeup artist's hand still clearing frame. No, sorry.
You see a spirit gum brush just for half a second,
go.
jerking out of frame.
We said final touches, Michael. This is it. We see now from the cellmate's perspective, the wolf coming at him. The first time we see the wolf full on. This movie is an hour and 33 minutes. It's an hour and 21 minutes that we finally see the wolf. Good God.
It's not the way to do it. It's not the way.
It is not. Because, like, we know there's a werewolf. Why be cagey about it? Why play him mysterious? We know it's going. The time for Mysterious Werewolf was an hour ago.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, oh, and I was just like, oh, great, the movie's almost over, and here's the werewolf. And so he kills the cellmate, and then just busts out of this jail cell, and the door of the cell falls on the guard, which is great.
Yeah.
No! And he's down. He doesn't get a what's all this then when he hears this vicious wolf murder happening, but he should have.
He does say, bitter irony.
Literally, because they're iron bars. The takes to camera in this movie were so unexpected.
Why didn't I listen? Look.
So then Christina has been taken to Alfredo's house, and she's staying with Teresa there. And she's like, well, what did he say when he was in the cell? Teresa says. She's like, I don't know. I didn't hear a lot of it, but he mentioned something about a silver bullet. And Teresa's like, oh, no. You mean the one around Pepe's neck? No, she doesn't say that.
She might have.
Yeah,
she
she
might.
might as well have.
It's implied.
You know what I like? We never see them actually go get the bullet from Pepe. He just has it at the end of the movie.
Yeah, he did due diligence. He tracked it down. Pepe, hey, was hoping I could borrow that silver bullet that's
and
around.
He's like, what silver bullet? It's like, oh, we don't have time for this, Pepe.
That was the 5 minutes that were cut by the censor. Not because it was so jarring or gross. They're like going, you know what? This is just too long already.
I will give this movie points for not having any needless bits in it. Even the drunk guy in the tavern isn't a comedy bit. It's just needless exposition.
Yeah.
This movie, I guess, because that's the one benefit of not having Sangster here.
Yeah. Maybe it was to curb that natural tendency to throw in, they're going to be slayed by this rustic comedic guy.
Yeah.
And the stupid comedy bit no one wanted.
We don't really have that in this movie, which I do appreciate that.
Yeah. I'll take it.
Like I said, we go more for lighthearted in places than actively like, this will bring the house down. So
it never did. No houses were brought down at any point.
So Teresa's upset because now she knows that Alfredo's going to go shoot essentially their son.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we have, I think, what has been a rarity for Hammer, but we're going into the Universal well. We have an angry mob with torches forming.
I was like, oh my God, this is the first time in Hammer so far we've had angry mob of villagers with torches.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. I know that for you, the movie's finally kicking in because we finally got Werewolf.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm all on board for Werewolf. I will say that this ending...
Well... you know what? Where we'll talk about where I lose it with this ending, though, and maybe it's the same thing because we have everybody gathered outside because they're like, "It's a werewolf about."
Yeah, my problem with it is that it's totally set bound, and at this point, even though this is a lovely set, the werewolf has escaped and just spends the next few minutes till his doom, just scampering around this awesome set.
That is absolutely my issue. He goes up one tower, down the other side, up another one, and down the other side. Like, it's all just...
He's not lashing out. He's not killing anybody. People are literally just standing on the ground.
He does do one cool thing when he's on one of the buildings, because I like, they're like, we want to know where this werewolf is, and so he's just like, he's up there on the roof, and there he is, and he's like, arr!
I mean, yeah.
Makeup looks great.
Makeup looks great. Agreed. But if you were a werewolf or a wolf and you have burst your way to freedom, you run away from this town. You run into the woods. You run away instead of
he has an opportunity to at one point, which we'll get to, and doesn't take it.
Well, he could literally leap off one of those walls to the outside and start running, and they would never catch him.
Right.
But instead, he's clearly on view, running from rooftop to rooftop, snarling, which I found interesting that the wolf howls are wolf howls put into the soundtrack. All the snarls are him.
Ooh.
And Oliver Reed talked
recorded while at a bar with him, right? And the sound guy, just him and a microphone.
And even though I think he does a fine job, it sounds like a guy doing snarls and growls. And I'm like going, I actually think it'd be better if you did that mixing thing where you mixed in actual wolf growls. Because
have him snarl, then mess around with it.
I mean, he's doing that and like, okay.
Oliver Reed said, it's in his contract, I always do my own snarling.
He wanted to do these stunts, the slide down the thing stunt, but they wouldn't let him, so that is a stunt.
Oh man, if he got hurt, he's got so much booze in him, he wouldn't feel it.
It's true. But
what?
He was like,
what? He's just standing there and there's a bone sticking out of his arm. He's like, what? What's everybody looking at? Oh, that's not good.
Look at that. Hello. He just starts flopping around. Look at that.
Oh, my arm. It's all weird.
Pretty gross.
So, yeah. He's anyway. Yeah. The other thing I don't like about the way he's climbing up and on these, because Christina's arrived, by the way, so she's now witnessing all this happening. Teresa's
the whole thing is that the problem with this ending is it is just shots of him clambering, then cut to the crowd just looking. And that's just it.
But there's also,
we see Christina and Alfredo.
There's points when he's very human-like when he's climbing, too. That bothers me. He's not climbing like an animal. He's like, oh, okay, this ladder, and he takes it very carefully, and you're like,
Yes.
No, that loses all effect of the wolf. The only cool thing he does at one point is he takes refuge behind these hay bales that are on top of the roof, and somebody throws a torch and lights one on fire, and he just picks up that burning hay bale and throws it right back at the crowd. And I like that. I wish it had hit somebody and lit them up, but look.
Well, they do run, like, they do scatter because those are real people, and a flaming bale of hay has literally hit there. And you can tell in that moment they didn't know how that would spread out.
Oh, God.
So you can see a few of them like, oh, God, that actually went a lot farther than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, geez, that one really almost hit me.
Oh, that was very close. Yeah. Oh, that was very
close. Yeah. No acting required in those scenes.
When they run into the building, when he's going to like the bell tower, and they're like, they run in, I thought it was very interesting. You can see them ditching their torches before they run in, like, we're an angry mob. But no, these are live torches. We can't take those inside the building.
No fire in the bell tower, everyone.
They're dropping them on the stairs as they run in.
Yeah.
So that is essentially it. He
climbs up into the bell tower. Alfredo climbs after him. He's got his rifle, and once he's up in the bell tower, Alfredo's pulling on the bells so that they're ringing. And
Alfredo doesn't do the pulling on the bells. It's some other person that goes, "Oh, I know it'll."
Oh yeah, you just cut to somebody pulling the bells.
Yeah, someone yanks the bells, so they start ringing.
I like that the tactic to take this wolf out is very similar to fighting Venom.
Exactly. They were hoping that the wolf part of him would just come off in this gross sort of viscous fluid.
Yeah.
But, so they ring the bells, which I thought, hey, nice callback to him being born on Christmas Day with the bells ringing. But no, Alfredo isn't ringing the bells.
Live by the bells, die by the bells, is what I say.
The bells are hurting his werewolf ears, but Alfredo seems to be having no problem. He opens the trapdoor, he's got the rifle, and there's it's nice. There's the shot of the understanding between them. It's like, oh, it's my dad. I'm still growling, but in my eyes, there's pain and fear and sadness.
Yeah, I also like the way finally the wolf grabs onto one of these bells and swings out, and that's when he shoots him. And boy, do I like seeing this werewolf get shot right in the heart.
Yeah, it's a good squib.
It's a solid squib,
He gets shot. We see it. There's blood.
Nice.
He falls down. He doesn't turn back. Interesting.
I was waiting for that because they kept cutting to a close-up of him on the ground. I was waiting for the turn back.
But I think they clearly showed us that they didn't have the budget to do actual time-lapse transformations, which is
based on how shit those hands look. Let's not bother.
So instead, we get the wide open, tiered, like that's where the crying comes in from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then Alfredo takes his cloak off and lays it over his dead son.
And then it cuts to this wide overhead shot of Christina being held by Teresa as they cry together. And then and then the movie's over.
Yeah. Just give me a second, John. Yeah. Can you just pause? Just pause back.
He was so beautiful.
Oh, God.
That was one hell of a wolf.
Really, I like the design.
It is one hell of a wolf, and it does bum me out that they didn't take another crack at werewolves.
They did, they did I mean, he's not ever fully, because they have partial shirt, like torn shirt on him. But unlike Lon Chaney Jr. in
his button-up and khakis.
His button-up, like, workman's khakis. Instead, this is like fur body, fur chest, fur arms. Love it.
Looks really good.
The side, like, mutton chop wisps, which echo kind of the thing that most werewolf movies don't. Jack Pierce's makeup is amazing, but it's not that wolf-like, because wolves have that great swept out sides of hair that gives it distinctive shape. And we have a pointy-eared werewolf in this. It's not too overdone, but it's not just his ears on the side. They're up.
Right.
They're kind of sticking up out of the top of his fur. So just on the design, I'm like, love this.
Oh, yeah.
Wish it was darker hair like his natural hair, but I'm digging it.
Oh, I'm very much digging it as well. This is good stuff.
It is a shame that they did not try another werewolf. They just said, well, that's it. That's our one go.
It's a huge bummer.
We made it to the end, John. It was a almost 90-minute film. What'd you think? Oh, we already know what you think.
Yeah, I think the first half is a slog, and the second half is pretty fun, but disappointing because I wanted more of that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I give it it's worth a look. Mainly, yeah, because of that last half when you get to Oliver Reed. I don't mind what the first half tries. Like, I like the idea of it
Oh,
taking sort of a
I
fairy tale or folklorish slant on werewolves and add in the creepy class dynamics and sexual dynamics, the rape becoming a. I'm not like, yeah, all right, they got me, but it's an interesting take. There's a vampire movie from early 70s called Grave of the I can't remember the full name of it, but it did a similar thing with a woman being raped by a vampire and her child becomes a vampire.
I'll say this: I wish they
Similar
had made
play.
the beggar clearly a werewolf too. You know, though, like because then it would have been like actually passing the. Because it's
I
just like
think
werewolf comes out of nowhere,
I
beyond
think it's
just
just
like it's just he's a werewolf.
something brutal and evil
Yeah.
uh, being visited on someone
I
innocent
just I wish
invites
the wolf
evil into
imagery
that
had been
child.
part of it somehow, though. You know,
Yeah,
like I want the I don't know. Look, I just
well,
think
they made him act like a dog, and he was all covered in fur when he was
I
in.
know that's what I'm saying. It's like they went half the way there.
Yeah, they kind of did.
Yeah.
So there's enough in this for me to suggest it. However, I agree with John. You guys will be probably pretty bored waiting for Oliver Reed to show up.
Yeah, that's why I just can't recommend it beyond if you're like, unless you're once again like seriously into these old monster movies and want to be a completist about it. But I do think this one I would not recommend. I really just can't because I think the
okay.
first part of it is too slow.
It is, and it really is structured unwisely. You could include a lot of the stuff that they included. You could do it much briefer and in flashback,
Yeah.
and you could give us a lot more Oliver Reed. You could give us a lot more idea of Leon and Christina's relationship.
That's
So
a
it's
big
not
part of
quite
it too. I just don't feel like there's enough work between the characters whose relationships are supposed to really matter down the stretch
right.
of it. You're like, I don't really know Christina. Like I have no
Yeah,
sense of her as a character.
she seems just very sweet,
Yeah.
and it's a Romeo and Juliet story, and
Yeah.
they touch on it so very briefly.
Yeah.
But I'm still giving it I'm giving it this give it a look.
Sure.
And we are, like, if you're tracking these things like we are, again, 61, they're inching forward
Yeah.
of the violence and what they're willing to do.
Well,
And again,
don't get me wrong. I like the violence.
implications.
Implications.
That sex stuff is all like, that's some interesting stuff.
All this sex stuff.
Yeah, the sex stuff.
Yeah.
So again, 1961, we are literally 30 years past Bela Lugosi's Dracula, and it's just interesting to see
Yeah.
where we're going.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, John, for the listeners, where are we going next?
Well, we're going to be in one-offs for a little while. Next week, you and we better put our tuxes on because we're headed to the opera.
Oh, good.
It's
Fat people
Phantom
yelling.
of the Opera next week on the show.
Yes, the great Herbert Lom. And this is one I saw when I was maybe 10 and haven't seen it since. I remember almost nothing of it other than disappointment over how not Phantom of the Opera it was.
I haven't seen it probably since I was in middle school. Maybe that's when I was watching a lot of these Hammer
It's
movies.
a bold new take on the classic material.
I remember really liking it when I was because it was sort of different and I thought nastier in a lot of ways, which I enjoyed.
We're gonna see.
Yeah,
But
I also I am 100% willing to be like, oh, that's not as good as I remember. So I'm not going like this one is a beloved one for me, but it's just I remember liking it. I remember thinking it was a cool, different take on it, and I remember liking the messed up makeup.
Yeah, you got Michael Goff. You've got
And anything with Michael Goff that gets a recommendation.
Yeah, so we're happy to be again in the Hammer fold with awesome talent. So we'll see how they do. I know that again, one off, and it didn't lead to anything else. And I think considered a flop, but we'll see because I know they spent a lot of money on it too. This was the second of their attempts to redo a Universal one.
We'll have to see how much that money shows up on screen.
Yeah, so join us next week for Hammer's Phantom of the Opera.
Indeed. Well, that's going to wrap things up for this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
But you'll need to wait at least, say 47 minutes to possibly an hour before you see them. Then there will be monsters.